Robbie, I don't think you want to go up against straws.
If we both speak, they listen to me.
When you speak, they hear a prophet. When Straw speaks, they hear themselves.
They'll listen to a prophet.
A prophet can't be wrong. Not once.
Hello and welcome once again to the Cine-Files, where we are continuing our exploration of the films of Christopher Nolan with part 3 of Oppenheimer. My name is Steve Morris. I'm a filmmaker and directing instructor in Los Angeles, California.
You know, Steve, hello. My name is John Rocha. I'm a writer, producer, and host.
Hello, John Rocha.
Yes, and voiceover artist in San Diego, California. I'm just so excited to talk about the movie because, I mean, we are now in a post-Odyssey world. The film has come out, and us, doing this to celebrate Nolan because the Odyssey was going to come out. I'm even more enamored with him as an artist after having had our conversations and then watching the Odyssey, and then walking back into this part to talk about however long we're going to talk about the next few minutes of Oppenheimer. So it's been an amazing experience. Just my estimation for him just grows and grows with every episode we do, and every movie I see of him, and every time I rewatch Oppenheimer in preparation for our conversations.
I feel the same way, and of course, we couldn't do this kind of a deep dive without our incredible supporters on Patreon, as well as on Apple Podcasts, where you can get ad-free versions of the show. You can listen to our Cine-Files shorts, and starting now, you can get access to our Cine-Files One Takes 1 week before the regular podcast feed.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we just dropped Victory. So in honor of the World Cup finishing up over the weekend, that is available for you on the podcast feed free, and then the next one take will be available at a certain tier and above, which Steve and I think we said $10 and above, but we might be negotiating that down or up, possibly depending on the situation. And then after that, it'll be available a week later for everybody to listen to. So just a little thing to encourage people who can jump up, knowing that we're giving you extra benefits and an extra episode every week, or every time we do one, rather, of these one takes. And I'm looking forward to it because that first one was a lot of fun. And I think it kind of scratched that itch that we both have been having lately about wanting to talk more movies and not necessarily be constrained by the blueprint of our show, which is fun,
And yet on this film, we are definitely following the blueprint because we really want to go bone deep with Oppenheimer. And where we are now, he had just gone back to Berkeley. He's pulled up to the Chevalier's house with Kitty and the baby. And after a little talk, Chevalier kind of corners Oppenheimer alone for a moment and asks if he remembers Ellington.
The chemist from Shell? The union guy?
Yeah, he was moaning about how we're handling the war.
And this, John, is what will come to be known as the Chevalier incident.
Yeah, which is also a chess move. No, I'm joking. But this is such an unsettling scene because remember, just a few minutes ago, the Chevaliers helped them out with their son, and even Kitty makes a horrible joke, want to adopt. Peter is so put upon throughout this whole movie as a prop in essence. And there's only little moments that you get to see how she really did not enjoy being a mom, and that was an issue for her. And then we get into this kitchen scene, which is really just sad because clearly there are political influences at work here. And this is, I think, where the movie takes a turn, Steve, this Chevalier incident, where we start to hear more and more that people in his sphere have an issue with what's going on in Los Alamos, with the usage of the weapon, the development of the weapon, and this idea of hiding the knowledge of how to create the weapon, which, of course, harkens back to the scene we finished on in part 2, where you and I debated whether there is a responsibility to tell the Nazis about this bomb. Now here comes Chevalier saying you need to be sharing, he's indirectly saying that the Russians are upset that Oppenheimer and others are not sharing what they're discovering with the Russians, who are supposedly allies. And of course, there's that whole aura of communism behind all of this. And it seems like he's essentially asking Oppenheimer to commit treason, which is sad considering this man was helping him. And now there's this division growing between them because of the bomb,
I think it's so important what you brought up about the baby and, Kitty's terrible joke is like, at his biggest moment of need, when Oppenheimer, who's been able to solve every problem, some that have never been solved in the history of the earth,
Yeah.
couldn't solve this problem. He didn't know what to do. And what seems to be his best friend, without a moment's hesitation, said, "Of course, I will help." And now that same best friend is turning to him and talking about information going to the Soviets.
Apparently, the government's not sharing any research with the Russians. Well, he said most scientists think the policy is stupid.
And the look from Oppenheimer when he realizes what this really is so it's so sad. I agree with you.
Yeah, and this is where you see Cillian really do incredible work as an actor. Still work is so important and difficult to do because your tendency is to do more. But Cillian is so still here in how he's staring, those piercing blue eyes staring at Chevalier in almost disbelief.
He mentioned that if anyone had anything they wanted to pass on, going around official channels, that he could help.
And Oppenheimer turns to him, and there's a hard look, and then he says,
That would be treason.
and Chevalier just immediately then backs off.
Yes, of course. I just thought you should know.
And then Kitty comes in, the baby's down, it's time for martinis, and we are moving on.
What do you think? I mean, this is one of his best friends saying this to him, essentially trying to mine him for information or maybe guide him because he thinks it's only fair that we share this information with the Allies. Is that because he wants the Soviet Union he wants to help the party? Like, what is the logic here behind what Chevalier is doing in this kitchen? Like, what do you think his intention really is here?
Let's get to one more line, and then I really want to explore that exact question because we go back to the gray board, and Oppenheimer's giving his testimony and says,
Conversation ended there. Nothing in our long-standing friendship would have led me to believe that Chevalier was actually seeking information, and I am certain that he had no idea of the work in which I was engaged.
I'm not sure if Oppenheimer believes this. I don't believe this at all. Chevalier 100% was contacted by a dude and told, I can slip information to the Russians. There's what Oppenheimer just said here to me doesn't make any sense at all. I mean, whether or not Chevalier himself was actually contacted by the Russians or if it was just this other guy from Shell, he knows what's going on, you know?
But like Graves is going to tell us later, Oppenheimer is caught up in this schoolboy notion of defending a friend, not turning on a friend. And so maybe in this moment, he still does not want to surrender Chevalier as a way of protecting him, because it's not the 1940s anymore. This is later. And so maybe he's seen the power of the government. And so he wants to keep them away from Chevalier, possibly.
Well, and I think to answer your question with Chevalier, I think people tend to do a thing where they believe other people are closer to their way of thinking or think and more than they actually are. And throughout this whole thing, Oppenheimer, from Chevalier's perspective, was 1 inch away from joining the party. Like Chevalier, and I mean, they're very close friends. So they've traveled together, they've talked about the world issues together, they've drunk together. And Chevalier feels he knows who Oppenheimer is.
Right.
And that really, in Chevalier's mind, I think deep down, he's almost a communist. So I think when he starts this thing, it doesn't occur to him that it's going to go where it's going to go,
Yeah. To me, it feels like a Falstaff Henry V moment, where Falstaff is essentially Chevalier showing back up to say to Henry, we've heard the chimes of midnight. We played, we did all these things. And Henry says to him, I know thee not, old man. He rejects him.
Yeah.
And I think in a way, the Oppenheimer that he knew that was one step away from joining the party is not the Oppenheimer now in this moment who has found his voice and his power and is lording over Los Alamos. And so it's two different things. Just like when Henry embraced being the king, he rejected Falstaff. I think in a way, Oppenheimer's rejecting Chevalier in this moment because that was something I did in the past. That is not who I am now.
Oppenheimer is running his ethical framework, I think, on a razor's edge.
Oh yeah.
Which is that he has gone. He believes that he has logically balanced these things. I do believe this, but at this moment, this is more important. Therefore, this must be like this.
Yeah,
and he's created all these barriers that make sense in his mind.
Like we all do. Exactly. Yeah.
And then we're back at the committee meeting where Strauss is testifying, and they talk about tensions between the various scientists at the AEC when Oppenheimer was there, and they mentioned that they're going to have a scientist come in and testify for this very committee.
Well, I'd like to know the name of the scientist testifying. I'd like the chance to cross-examine.
This is not a court.
And I wrote down, hoist it on your own petard, Strauss.
Yeah, we see the worm turn here for him.
Yeah.
And he is unsettled. And so is his lawyer, who was surprised by this as well.
And then he's back with his team, and now he's, pissed off. They had said this was a formality. It's obviously not. They try to reassure him.
They bring in a scientist, so what?
You don't know scientists like I do, counselor. They resent anyone who questions their judgment, especially if you're not one of them.
And they're like, look, stay the course. We don't want to battle with the scientific community. And then you see Strauss get that little idea, and he says,
or should we pivot?
So what?
And embrace it. I fought Oppenheimer and the U.S. won.
There's the thing where the villain, in the end, if he secretly won, still kind of wants to crow about it. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, right. The criminal's always coming back to the scene of the crime. There is that sense of wanting the recognition for it, right? And we've seen that built up throughout the whole movie, that Strauss is someone who is frustrated by the lack of recognition by the people he seems to want the most recognition from, which are these scientists. He has a love-hate relationship with the scientific community because he wants their respect, but he hates the fact that he can't get it. So it's like that's kind of rolling through all of this, but he's so caught up in this. Once again, we are always the architects of our own demise. He's so caught up in his questioning of the scientific community and mistrust of the scientific community, paranoia, that it's going to lead him to the bad places later on in the movie.
And as we're talking about speculating on who this scientist might be that they bring in, Christopher Nolan shows us Strauss's thoughts, which is his mind goes back to that what RDJ called the rosebud moment of the movie, with the hat blowing off of Einstein and him walking by Strauss and ignoring him. And I think Strauss is thinking the worst person they could bring in is the most famous scientist in the world, even more famous than Oppenheimer, and that would be Einstein, because he thinks Oppenheimer turned Einstein against him.
Which is all in his head.
We're back at Los Alamos. Amazing helicopter shot as Oppenheimer and Kitty drive in, and we hear, and every time in this movie we hear this, it stresses me out, which is we hear the sound of that crying baby.
Yeah.
And they get to their house, and the first thing Kitty says is,
"There's no kitchen."
Really? We'll fix that.
This was actually shot in Oppenheimer's house in Los Alamos. This is his actual house.
That's amazing.
They had to mask with like trees and stuff because there are more modern buildings outside the windows. They had to mask it a bit. But this, for both Cillian Murphy and for Emily Blunt, they said this was just really powerful to sit in his chair, to be in his room, to be in this space.
This whole sequence is really interesting as we go along because it feels almost PTA-ish in There Will Be Blood. And I will kind of speculate a little bit later, but like it feels that way as we go into these Los Alamos scenes, the way he's using the camera, the way Göransson's score is coming in certain moments. It's just interesting. And Kitty's bitterness of it all, man. I mean, this is the thing that's really interesting because her character is not portrayed as this, likable person at times until that moment when she really makes her stance against Jason Clarke's Robbie Robb. So it's interesting to watch how this is all progressing.
We're walking with a scientist who says,
Barbed wire, guns.
So a little bit about the security at this place. There was barbed wire all around Los Alamos. You needed a pass to get in and out of Los Alamos. All the scientists were being monitored. But Richard Feynman wanted to test the security, I guess, a little bit. He found a hole in the the story is he found a hole in the barbed wire fence. I think it's just as possible that Feynman cut a hole in the barbed wire fence. So he went out through the hole, came back to the gate, showed his ID to the guard, went into Los Alamos, went around to the hole, went out in the hole, came back in, showed his ID to the guard. He said he did this like 10 times in one day, just to mess with the security.
Scientists.
And now we're back sort of with the scientists, and they're discussing the explosion in Halifax.
1917, a cargo ship carrying munitions explodes in the harbor. A vast and sudden chemical reaction.
Which is the largest man-made explosion in the history of the world before the atomic bomb. And this is a question from one of our patrons, Michael McKenzie, who asks, in the film Oppenheimer, they refer to the Halifax explosion. Did you know about this event before the film? I find it neat that a $1 billion biopic talked about my hometown and its greatest tragedy.
Oh.
Did you know about the Halifax explosion before this movie?
I feel like I might have heard it on a PBS show, or I don't know, but I heard something like that, but nothing. I didn't know the specifics of it at all. And when you say man-made explosion, I still haven't researched whether it was an accident or intentional.
Oh no, it's an accident. It's some combination of there were like I don't remember it. I had heard of it, and it heard one of my random history podcasts or something talked about it.
Right.
My memory. So please check my facts on this. But my memory is that it was chemical. Is that there were some chemicals that somehow combined and created this just massive explosion.
Yeah, apparently 1,782 people were killed by the blasts and 9,000 were injured. It was roughly 2.9 kilotons of TNT. Jesus Christ. Wow.
No, it was huge, absolutely huge explosion. And that's what they're talking about now is like, how are we going to measure the power of the bomb? And they say, well, we'll just measure it in tons of TNT. And someone said, but it would be thousands. And Oppenheimer so casually says, well, kilotons then. And to me, it's just like we're not very good at going up by orders of magnitude. Like the difference between 1 million and 1 billion, they sound close to each other. They're not. They're one's 1,000 times more. So we're talking about thousands of tons of TNT.
Yeah.
The other thing we hear is that someone refers to this as a bomb and is quickly corrected to call it the gadget. And then we have just a great visual thing, which is we have put a big glass and a jar on the table, and we drop like marbles and stuff into them.
Here's the amount of uranium Oak Ridge refined all of last month. And the Hanford plant made this much plutonium.
And they ask, because Edward Teller doesn't seem to be paying much attention.
Are we boring you, Edward?
A little bit, yes.
May I ask why?
We all entered this through knowing a fission bomb was possible. How about we leave it with something new?
Teller's just the oddest and most interesting character in this whole movie, I think, for me. And he proposes the hydrogen bomb.
Heavy hydrogen, deuterium. You see, we compact the atoms together under great pressure to induce a fusion reaction. Then we'll get not kilotons, but megatons.
So just a second ago, we went from the tons of TNT to kilotons, and now we're going to multiply that by more thousands in order to get up to megatons.
It reminds me of a character we've seen in the movies, and I can't remember it, but it's someone who is just obsessed with things getting even bigger, like the obsession of something even bigger. That's what turns him on, right? And so there is a sense of like, where's this going to take him? And so we set him up clearly as someone who is antagonistic to what they're doing, and that'll be revisited a few times here in the next few minutes of the movie.
By the way, to me, like there's always this dude in a meeting. Like you're sitting down, you're planning a party, and you go like, all right, so we're going to have the barbecue. People are going to bring hot dogs and hamburgers. And some guy goes, yeah, we could do that. But what if instead we roast a whole pig, and do it luau themed with like acts and dances and decorations? Like, dude, we're just planning a barbecue, man. Like, what are you doing?
And then they usually storm out when you don't take their ideas. Yeah, exactly.
Which Teller is going to do later in this movie.
Yeah, exactly.
So how do you generate enough force to fuse hydrogen atoms?
A small fission bomb.
Here we are.
And everyone laughs, and Oppenheimer smartly says, I think, well, since we're going to need one anyway, we'll get back to the business at hand.
But this is good filmmaking, right? You want to establish Heller on his own. You want to establish him in some way separate from everyone else. Because most of the scientists in the film have their moments, but they don't stand out like he does. And clearly he's standing out because Nolan is leading to this debate that they have when they take the bomb away later on in the film on opposite sides of the truck and then have this conversation about it. So he's setting him up as someone who's much more important down the road, and of course leading to that ignored handshake from Kitty at the end of the movie. So yeah, it's smart filmmaking to make him stand out. And I think Safdie's great in this, man.
I do too.
He's really good. Yeah.
And I just want to point out like the thematic complexity of what Nolan is doing, because we started with the Chevalier incident, which introduces the idea of the Russians. And we're really talking about security with the Russians. Mm-hmm. And now we've moved from that into the hydrogen bomb, what they will call the super. That is also related to the Russians and to the Cold War that we're going to get to in a middle. Right. All of these things are connected, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what I mean. Like the movie turns in the Chevalier incident. There's more interests now that are involved in this, and he's going to be pulled in a lot of different directions in trying to combat the interests from other people in other countries.
And then to further cement this, we go back to the committee meeting, which brings up that you had other conflicts with Oppenheimer on the AEC. And of course, one of those conflicts is what Teller just brought up, which is the hydrogen bomb.
Yeah.
And we see Strauss walk into this fancy dinner hotel thing. He's wearing a tuxedo. He came in on short notice. And what they are talking about is that the Russians have ignited a bomb.
The Russians have a bomb.
And now suddenly we're in the Cold War.
What were you guys doing at Los Alamos? Wasn't security tight?
Of course it was. You weren't there.
Forgive me, Doctor.
But we don't know who's speaking at first until we move a giant flower centerpiece out of the table, and there is Nichols.
But I was there.
And now, and again, we're spinning on these ideas of the hydrogen bomb, of security, of the Russians, all of those things, and happening over multiple time zones. We're having the same discussion over the same issues. We see more marbles going into the bowl, and now we see that Nichols was at these meetings and was observing what was happening. And now the conversation is about detonation, and they're talking about a couple of different ways to do it. The second one is about implosion, which is essentially a huge explosion, all forced inward to create the detonation, which is eventually what they end up doing. Mm-hmm. We're with General Groves up at the main gate. By the way, this main gate, it's another example of using forced perspective to make it look bigger than it actually is.
Meet the British contingent.
Dr. Oppenheimer, Klaus Fuchs.
How long have you been British?
Since Hitler told me I wasn't German.
Great back and forth.
Agreed. Yeah. And we go into a room where there's a woman sitting at a desk.
Is that
Mr. Server? Yes. I've offered jobs to all the wives, admin, librarians, computation. We cut down on staff, keep families together.
Are these women qualified?
Don't be absurd. These are some of the brightest minds in our community.
And they're already security cleared.
I love that. I just love that little detail.
Oppenheimer's growing in power in his mind in Los Alamos, right? Because he didn't do this. He didn't pass this by Graves. And Graves even says to him, well, I don't like it. Well, because that's not a barometer I can use. You don't like anything.
Yeah.
So it's clear that he is, in a way, running this town, and that Graves is somewhat of a necessary evil rather than someone he feels he has to run things by, right? And Nichols, by an extension, is that as well. So you see that there is bubbling tension here that is happening between the scientific community and the military, and Oppenheimer's ego and Graves's task and mission. You know, so again, it's almost again like a bomb. These things are bouncing around each other, and it will explode at some point. You know.
Well, and it's the arrogance of Oppenheimer, because he believes that his ethical framework is the correct one.
Correct.
And this is obviously the best way to do it. And of course, to some degree, I mean, he succeeds in doing something that was almost entirely impossible to accomplish in the time and manner in which he accomplished it. So in one sense, his framework is correct. But there are all these things that he's not ignoring, you know, that are problematic.
How did the Russians get the bomb?
Yeah.
That's the thing. Was there a spy? And certainly he's going to push against it because that threatens his threatens what he did there and the status of what he did there, you know.
Well, and this becomes the next topic because Oppenheimer has been holding these sort of cross-denominational meetings with the department so that everybody can discuss what they're doing.
Shut them down. Compartmentalization is the key to maintaining
Only
security.
the top men. Who presumably communicate with subordinates.
These men aren't stupid. They can be discreet.
And I'm like you've been discreet? You know, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, listen, I know sometimes the movie tries to turn us against the military, but as someone who served in military intelligence for 8 years, like, I do feel Groves is right in quite a few moments when he's having these back and forths with Oppenheimer, because Oppenheimer is effing naive and his hubris and his ego. You know, I know people like to vilify the military, but sometimes the military are absolutely essential in situations like this. And that secrecy is absolutely essential in situations like this. You know?
Well, and, you know, Oppenheimer decides who he can trust based on his own personal view of that person. Right. And then each of those people make their own decisions based on what they think is who they can trust. And the thing is, in any organization, not everybody is that smart. Even if you're, and this is the thing too, you can be the most brilliant physicist in the world, but still be a fucking moron when it comes to people. As Groves said, this guy knows more about physics than he knows about people.
Yes.
Like, that is true, you know, and so Oppenheimer's trust, you know, can be really mislaid.
I think I think they were right about him. One, he could make the bomb, as you said, but he couldn't run a hamburger stand, and that is where we start to see the cracks in the way he runs Los Alamos, for sure, in the people. Yeah.
So he's pushing to have these meetings with top men, and then he pushes on something that seems even more impossible.
I'd like to bring my brother here.
No.
And then he asks if his security clearance has been improved. Nichols says it hasn't.
You are aware that the Nazis have a 2-year head start.
Dr. Oppenheimer, the fact that your security clearance is proving difficult to obtain is not my fault. It's yours.
Which is true.
It may not be your fault, but it's your problem because I'm going.
Again, rules for you.
Yeah.
Different rules for me.
Yep.
Yeah.
And now we're back at that dinner in black and white.
And how many people were in these open discussions?
Too many. Compartmentalization was supposed to be the protocol.
We were in a race against the Nazis.
And now the race is against the Soviets.
Where I certainly agree with Oppenheimer is like, if I was making a movie and you said I could not have my department heads all meet together, I couldn't have the costume designer and the production designer and the cinematographer and the AD all in the same room, I would be like, I can't make a movie that way. Like, all these people have to know what each other's doing. I believe that Oppenheimer is right, that in order to build this bomb, you need the free sharing of information. But as you said, I think the Army is right that this is not secure, you know?
No, absolutely not. And and the way they've constructed this whole thing, you know, we never get to see if Graves' way could have been right, because Oppenheimer violates Groves' way could have been right, because Oppenheimer violates Groves' way of doing things consistently. So he had to do his own thing. And that may be what ends up leading to the secrets being spilled about the H-bomb to the Russians.
Well, this is why looking at history, particularly historical events as important and complex as the building of the atomic bomb, is so difficult, because we can have 20/20 hindsight maybe, but we don't have counterfactuals. So it could, like, yes, if we could go to the alternate timeline in some Avengers style way and see what happens if they perfectly followed the protocol in terms of security recommended by Groves. The question is, do they beat the Nazis to building a bomb?
Right.
And then the opposite one is true too, is like, you know, if Oppenheimer just ignored all protocols, then how many more secrets would go out? Like we can't know, you know?
Yeah. Exactly.
And the Russians might have developed the bomb anyway.
Yes.
You know?
Very true. Very true.
So it's just this idea of a race against the Soviets has just come up, and Oppenheimer says,
not unless we started.
Robert, they just fired the starting gun.
Which I love that line.
Yeah.
Like that is the starting gun to the Cold War. That's what just happened. And then we find out that the data that they have suggests that it's exactly the kind of plutonium device that was developed at Los Alamos.
And Robert doesn't want to admit it. Robert does not want to admit it.
No, because any stain on his record stains the whole thing in Robert's mind. as opposed to going, yes, there could have been leaks, like,
Right.
Because, what's funny? It relates to a line that's going to come up at the end of the sequence, which is he saying prophets can't ever be wrong? Well, that's what Robert is putting forth. He is creating, he is creating the world in which he can't be wrong.
The Russians have a bomb. Truman needs to know what's next.
What's next? Arms talks.
I have to say, this scene irritated me in ways that I'd never been irritated before. And maybe it's because I'm, getting older and much more hyper aware of how dangerous our world is and how important the military can be at times to our world and our safety and stuff. And like, he's so naive. And this whole thing of, we'll just have arms talks. Dude, take a fucking moment and look at what you did here. Like this whole idea that's, we'll just solve it with arms talks. This whole thing is he's just not grasping how important this is and what a mistake this was. And to find an answer for it.
Sorry, which part is his mistake? I want to make sure I understand.
The way he ran things might have led to a spy revealing the information to the Russians, right? And the fact that he won't take any responsibility for it, but then just goes flippantly, well, you have arms talks. That's what you do. It's like, hey, problem solved. Don't blame me. We can do this. And it's like, no, man, take a fucking moment, take your hits, take your punishment, admit what you did, and take some kind of responsibility here. And then we can figure out what we're going to do next. But to flippantly go arms talks like it's no big deal, I think is mass. Because you know what? You shove the problem off to politicians and diplomats and negotiators and all of that. And you just sit here being a scientist and creating your stuff. So for me, it irritates me when I see the flippancy with which he just says arms talks like it's not a big deal. And I think the rest of the scientists react in a way that's like,
Well, there's a mix. Some of them say, arms talk's great. Yeah. And others are obviously not into it. And it's funny because to me, there's like, I need to separate two things out, which is for me, I 100% agree with you that the degree to which Robert's ego is up in this decision is way too much. He has to be perfect, and that doesn't make sense at all. But if I had been in Robert's situation, I would have said arms talks too. Like I absolutely believe that we had a responsibility to, and we did some, and there was some limitations, test ban treaties, not expanding them, some inspection, as Reagan later said, trust but verify. I think had we had more I absolutely would have been pushing for arms talks, but that doesn't mean you're not also doing a whole bunch of other stuff, I guess is what I would say.
Well, listen, I'm not against arms talks. I think him suggesting it obviously is correct. My issue is the way he refuses to take responsibility and the flippancy with which he just suggests arms talks, which moves the responsibility away from him. I just didn't like that in that moment. And I don't think you're supposed to like it, to be honest.
And then we find out, we're talking about the super, that the president of the United States, Truman, might not even know that such a thing is possible. Like, because this is the other thing is like, okay, you don't follow all the security stuff that you should have. And now somehow we're not informing the president. I mean, the basic thing to me, the president should know the facts of what's going on. That should be basic.
I think he's one of the most overlooked presidencies. Don't you, Steve? Like there was so much that happened under Truman's rule. And McCullough's book is amazing. If you guys haven't read David McCullough's book, I highly suggest it. But there were so many consequential things that happened under his administration, yet he's one of the most forgotten presidents when people talk about momentous presidencies,
I think people had such strong feelings for FDR, and Truman was such a nobody by comparison, that I think there was just a really, really long bad taste. And I agree. Do I put him down on the list of the greatest presidents of all time? Probably not. Right. But I think he was a very successful president. Although this decision to drop the bomb, we're going to have to get to that. These are consequential decisions.
Yeah.
And we start talking about Teller's design for the super. And I have real problems with Oppenheimer here.
We still don't know if a hydrogen bomb is technically feasible.
Right, my understanding is that Teller proposed it?
Yes.
At Los Alamos?
Teller's designs have always been wildly impractical. You'd have to deliver by ox cart, not airplane.
And Lawrence obviously doesn't like that and says,
Hobby.
Sorry, Dr. Lawrence, you want to comment?
No.
My note here is discuss. What was Lawrence's reaction?
This is what he's done throughout the whole movie. these moments where he's trying to move Oppenheimer away from his worser instincts. And in that moment, how Oppenheimer says the way he says this thing about the ox cart. For Lawrence, I think for him, it's like another moment for him, like, Oppie, stop. Like, stop. You know, he's trying to guide him. But when Strauss calls him out on it, I don't think he wants to indulge in the battle, because I think Lawrence is like, this is above my pay grade, man. I'm not getting involved in this, you know?
Well, and I think he particularly doesn't want to do it in front of Strauss. I mean, he is Oppenheimer's friend, you know?
Right.
And so, like, he doesn't want to tear down or lessen Oppenheimer's power. I don't think Lawrence is a fan of Strauss.
Right.
But I think, I mean, my reaction to what this moment is, because Lawrence is the practical guy. He is the guy who's the experimentalist. He's the guy who builds stuff.
Yes.
Oppenheimer is the theory guy. And what Oppenheimer did with this ox cart comment, to me, is very simple, is very similar to the, you know, it's more useful than a sandwich, but less than electronic equipment. It is him as the great man making pronouncements to diminish something. And what I think, and what I think Lawrence's reaction is that I don't think this is true. I think Oppenheimer is intentionally being misleading about the practicality of building this weapon.
He's downplaying it because he wants to move responsibility away from himself. That's what it is. He's trying to downplay it or say that it's ridiculous or impossible because he wants to make it seem like it's a ridiculous thing so he can look better by comparison. And I think you're right, 100%. Lawrence is like, come on, dude, you know?
I think I think that is absolutely a motivation, but I also think there's another motivation, or I think one of the things, and again, this might be what Oppenheimer is telling himself to make it okay what he's doing. But I don't think Oppenheimer wants the hydrogen bomb to be developed. The hydrogen bomb can destroy the world. Like, we should not go down this fucking path. You know?
You're so right, Steve. I think that becomes definitely a prevalent narrative as the film goes along, for sure. How much he abhors that thing. Yeah.
Well, and this is why this is such a complex and human and difficult movie, because as we've said now many times, there aren't right answers to any of these things.
No.
And I do believe that Oppenheimer is wrestling with the moral questions throughout the entire movie, but I also think his ego and his sense of himself and what his value is and his fame and all those things are continually clouding his judgment, you know?
Yeah, and I think this is the genius of Christopher Nolan, Steve. I'll take a moment to say this, like, rewatching this, I watched about an hour again before our conversation of this section, and I was struck by this is the success of Nolan. He can bring up these really, as you just said so well, Steve, these complex, nuanced, layered conversations with multiple tangents that are connected to what's going on. But he makes them understandable and relatable, and you're not lost in the minutia of this or that. There's the way he writes the dialogue with John. I think Jonathan co-wrote this one as well. Like the way he writes the dialogue to make it seem something that you can understand. Martin Sherwin, like you can understand how he's laying this all out. But he doesn't get lost in the minutia of the debate. And that, I think, helps the mainstream audiences to get what he's going for. I think audiences are obviously intelligent, can be smart. But I also think when you get into science, man, you can lose people quickly. And the way he make this debate they're having is a really complex debate with a lot of angles to this. But he never gets lost in the minutia in discussing the real specifics and particulars. It's much more in a broader sense, a more generalized approach to this. And I think that's the gift of his writing. It's a deft thing. You don't notice it unless you watch these movies multiple times. He will never drown you in the minutia. But there's enough here for you to get the human motivations that feel universal in the things that they're discussing. And I think that's the gift of his writing, which I think was in all over the Odyssey, you know, making a Greek epic that's 3,000 years old, relatable and modern in its approach. I think he was very successful in doing that.
I mean, what he's accomplishing in this film in terms of, first of all, massive amounts of exposition, which is just that's the death of drama. That is, and yet he makes it all really dramatic because the characters are so rich and there's so much human conflict that's keeping you going. And then he's supporting all of that with the intercutting and the filmmaking and the music and the sound and the tension building through all that technique. So you're just it's like you're carried along in a way as a wave, you know, on all this stuff that's happening. And it's also why this is a movie that does, as you've been doing, warrants multiple viewings because you can't fully get it all in the first. It's not that it's not totally entertaining and engrossing. It is. But as you watch it multiple times, it's like, wait, what was Lawrence about to say? Those become really big things as you're watching it more and more.
Totally.
And of course, Strauss is all about the hydrogen bomb because he sees this as a race.
Because if it can put us ahead again, the President of the United States needs to know about it. And if the Russians know about it already from a spy at Los Alamos, then we got to get going.
There's no proof there was a spy at Los Alamos.
Later on, of course, we will find out there was a spy at Los Alamos.
Yeah.
And now we're back to, he had said he was going to take this trip to Chicago. We're now walking into a football stadium, which they have a nuclear lab underneath it because no one's using the stadium anymore. We go in and see Dr. Fermi. We have a little conversation about Los Alamos. And then he asks, when are you going to try it out?
We did. The first self-sustaining nuclear chain reaction. Didn't Groves tell you?
Compartmentalization right there.
Yep.
Biting him in the ass. Yeah.
Back to Los Alamos, he's talking with one of the women.
I tried personnel. They asked if I could type.
Can you?
Harvard forgot to teach that on the graduate chemistry course.
Condon, put Mrs. Sornick here on the plutonium team.
Olivia Thirlby is one of the most underused actresses in the history of film. It is so frustrating that she doesn't work more. She's great in Juno. She was great in Dread. She's great in that the New York film compilation from the 80s, I think, or 90s. She's just such a good actress. And the fact that she's barely in this movie is so frustrating because I just always enjoy her when she works. And I just think that's one of the negatives about the film is how many great actors are a part of this film that only get a certain number of scenes. And her back and forth with him, I think, is great and establishes something really powerful. We could have seen her be a much more powerful female energy in the film, but we never get a chance to really have a lot of concentrated scenes with her. And it's supremely frustrating,
It's funny. My reaction is almost the opposite because, not that she doesn't. What is frustrating to me is that she doesn't have all sorts of other great things to do. You know this as an actor. How much of an actor's job is to essentially, in one way or another, have to learn how to say, "Do you want fries with that?" Because that's the only part. Like, yes, she is only in this scene.
Yeah.
But this scene is
two or three scenes. But yeah.
But this is a great scene. Like she got to play. She got to have two lines in an amazing movie with an amazing ensemble. This to me, it's all the other shit she's not getting that to me is upsetting.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, getting more screen time in that way. Yeah, for sure.
And then Groves comes in, pissed off that Oppie went to Chicago, but then it's not Oppenheimer who argues with him. It's another scientist.
Visiting the Met.
Why?
You can't do
Why?
this. We have every right.
You have just the rights that I give you. No more, no less.
We are adults trying to run a project here. This is ridiculous. Tell him.
And Oppenheimer, and we see this throughout the movie, he does not, in fact, tell him.
Nope.
He quotes the party line.
Compartmentalization is the protocol we agreed to.
He just went to Chicago, totally ignoring the rules and compartmentalization. But now when the other scientist is angry about it, Oppenheimer plays for the other side,
This is what I call, with Nolan, his prestige stuff. Like his magic trick. He is constantly showing you ways that Oppenheimer is not a good person or is at times a selfish, egotistical person. But he's also interspersing these moments where he is the victim of a rigged security meeting, right? So you're constantly battling between sympathy and consternation with him, and I think it's very smart because that keeps you on your toes as a viewer for a protagonist. Because there are moments where I really am done with Oppenheimer, and this moment here, because that scientist, and he does such a great job. This actor who plays him. Like he looks like a child who's getting yelled at by his dad, doesn't know what to do, and like storms out of the back into the backyard. That's what's going on here. And the way he shoots it, like the way Damon comes in there is really intimidating and stuff. And the fact that Oppie won't stand for him, a man who's probably stood by him, a man who was fighting against Groves earlier in the scene when he was when Oppenheimer was talking about hiring the secretaries who were the wives. Like this is a guy that Oppie just turned on here in this moment. And as you said, he had just done the same fucking thing. And so it does not speak well of him that he's willing to sacrifice anybody as long as he stays in power, you know?
By the way, I wasn't sure where to bring it up, but you know, with Matt Damon as Groves storming in, the actual General Groves was built like a football player. He was huge. He was well over 6 feet, like 250 pounds. He was genuinely physically intimidating to people. But this scientist is done.
Enough of this madhouse. Nobody can work under these conditions. You know what? Generalissimo, I quit.
And he storms off.
I like that Francisco Franco reference. That was good.
Better off without him.
Aren't you more concerned about his discretion out there?
We'll have him killed.
Yikes.
I love his follow-up. No, just kidding. He hates me, not America.
Yeah.
And then we get into another surprising idea.
You know, General, not everyone has levers to pull like mine.
I don't think I understand.
You didn't hire me despite my left-wing past. You hired me because of it. So you could control me.
Do you think this is true?
Yes, and I think what Grove says in response, that he's not that
he says, I'm not that subtle. I'm just a humble soldier.
Yeah, is bullshit. Is bullshit. You don't achieve the levels of power in the military that he achieved without being able to know how to push buttons or hit levers. And so I think this is a way of always keeping people on their toes about that stuff.
So I don't think Groves hired Oppenheimer solely because of his left-wing past. He hired Oppenheimer because he did believe Oppenheimer is the only person who can do this job.
Right.
But Groves was certainly aware of this lever and that he could use it when or if he had to.
Exactly.
You're neither humble nor just a soldier. You studied engineering at MIT.
Guilty as charged.
Now, studying engineering at MIT is not actually the same as studying quantum physics, but he does have a scientific background.
Right. And basically, he's not dumb, is what it's intimating. So, and it's true.
Well, now we understand each other. Perhaps you can get me my security clearance so I can perform this miracle for you.
Let me ask you the question. Why do you think Groves delayed giving him the security clearance?
I think it's exactly what Oppenheimer said. I think it's to keep him on a short leash, to keep compartmentalization.
Good point.
To keep, because he wasn't supposed to go to fucking Chicago. That violated, and the reason he couldn't go to Chicago was he didn't have a security clearance. Right. I also think that when it becomes obvious that Oppenheimer is going to go to Chicago if he wants to go to Chicago, because this is, this is what people don't fucking understand about leadership. Leadership is not, there is an obvious right answer, and I just find the obvious right answer and do that. Leadership is balancing between 1, 2, 3, 20 different complicated answers with good and bad sides to them. Bad thing, Oppenheimer breaking compartmentalization.
Yes.
Good thing, Oppenheimer being able to do everything he needs to do in order to build the bomb. And Groves is balancing those things in his head, and at this moment decides it's more important to give Oppenheimer his freedom so that we can get this bomb built and take the risk of the bad things that could happen from it.
I also think the reason he walks into that room and yells at the other scientist is because he sees him as expendable, whereas Oppenheimer, he doesn't. So in a way, he's using the scientist as a way to send a message to Oppenheimer about the situation, which I think is part of his genius as a leader,
And again, we have just this brilliant use of filmmaking structure, which is up till this point in the gray board, it has been Oppenheimer testifying.
Yeah.
And now suddenly General Groves is there.
In your opinion, would he ever consciously commit a disloyal act? I would be amazed if he did.
Which is what basically everyone says,
Yeah.
So he had complete confidence in his integrity.
At Los Alamos, yes, which is where I really knew him.
At Los Alamos is not saying I have complete confidence in his integrity.
No. Right.
Well, and frankly, I don't think General Groves has complete confidence in the integrity of any human on Earth.
Nope.
I think General Groves is a realist and he knows humans are humans.
Yep.
General, did your security officers on the project advise you against the clearance of Dr. Oppenheimer?
They could not and would not clear him until I insisted.
Well, then there's only really one question I need answered here today. In light of the current AEC guidelines, would you clear Dr. Oppenheimer today?
And then Groves, and I think this is really smart. This is a dude who has been on the stand. He's been in front of senior officers. He's been asked difficult questions before, and he does not answer this right away. He says,
Do you have the guidelines?
Because he wants to know specifically what do the current guidelines say before he answers this question. And then Nolan, being a great filmmaker, it doesn't give us his answer yet. We cut away. We're back at Los Alamos, and Lawrence has showed up.
Physics and New Mexico, huh? My God, what a trek.
Which is pretty amazing.
Dr. Lawrence. Leslie, I'd like to remind you what we talked about in Berkeley.
Compartmentalization, I understand completely.
And he goes inside to make his speech and says,
Greetings from Berkeley. I am here to update you on our progress and solicit your input. To do so, I am going to have to share a few things that General Groves told me not to. Sorry, General, I said I understood, not that I agreed.
I'm always in the middle on these things, right? Because, I mean, having served in the military, I don't like, I hated that moment. And you see Groves is pissed.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Groves is not happy with this. And there is a bit of sometimes the scientific community really hates the military and can be kind of like, we're smarter than you. We played you. We're so fucking intelligent, blah, blah, blah. And it is utterly frustrating because they're the ones who fuck up shit all the time. As much as people come after the military for making mistakes, and we do make mistakes, we have made mistakes, certainly historically. We might be possibly making one now. But
possibly.
Scientists have also made colossal fucking mistakes from their hubris, from their arrogance, from their pig-headedness, from their stubbornness, from their inconsideration. That has also been a prevalent thing. So to somehow believe one community is somehow better than the other when it's all human beings.
Exactly.
Just wearing different names, right? Different tags. It's really no different. And as I get older, Steve, it's truly what I believe. The separation between us is actually almost non-existent in terms of humanity. No matter what your ranking is or your status is, we're all subject to all the things that we complain that other people are doing or other communities are doing. And it takes a lot to kind of take a moment to step back. I'm guilty of not always doing that. And so it's true, though, when you watch it in the context of this movie, and it's the way they flout their nose at the military, who is absolutely providing the whole opportunity for them to expand their scientific abilities and what they can create, I think is utterly fascinating to bite the hand that's feeding you, from an arrogant place.
Now you are fully talking my language. I mean, this is that is absolutely 100% what I believe. We're all humans. We so want to put people into groups and go, the military, they're like this, and scientists are like that. And we do it with all sorts of other things that are beyond jobs, race and color and gender and all these things. And it's like, humans are all humans. And so the military makes mistakes, the scientists make mistakes, and within those communities are cultures. The military makes certain kinds of mistakes, partially because they have a certain kind of culture.
Right.
And scientists make different kinds of mistakes because they have a different kind of culture and different kind of goals. The big thing for me is, yes, I mean, you know me, I'm a rule follower. I'm a want to be I was a Boy Scout. That's part of my thing.
Yes. But I've also seen you break some rules at times.
Well, that's what I was just going to say.
All right, go ahead. Sorry.
Because I think what happens is it's like you're on a street at night. There's nobody there. You're waiting to cross in the crosswalk, and the little blue man or green man won't show up. There's literally no cars for miles around.
Yeah.
Cross the fucking street. Break that rule. There's all sorts of times where it's like I could just pick this thing up right now, and sometimes those are the right choices. As I said, comparing, it's ridiculous to compare shooting a movie to making the atomic bomb, but I don't believe that you can do it without those department heads communicating. So to some degree, I'm with the scientists.
Yeah.
And there was a spy at Los Alamos.
Exactly.
And literally, it is possible that their lack of security at Los Alamos is the cause of the Cold War.
Yes. But it's also possible, as you said, in another universe, that the compartmentalization meant that we never built the bomb and we got beat in the war.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Except for the fact that the Germans, who were the other ones trying to develop the bomb, had lost the war already and would never develop a bomb. So it's also possible if we stopped then or failed, that we would have no nuclear weapons at all.
Possibly.
And it's also possible, because people have put this theory forward, that the reason that the Cold War era is essentially the least militarily violent time in human history is because of the threat of nuclear war.
Yes, you're so right, Steve, because Niels Bohr later will say to Oppenheimer, is it big enough to end all wars, right? So is this idea of the détente of nuclear weapons, right?
And again, we can't have the counterfactual. We can't go back and see what the universe would be like without this. And which is why this movie is so filled with like really the juiciest ambiguity I can think of. You know, we're back at that dinner. We're back to talking about a spy, which makes sense because we just saw Lawrence again break the compartmentalization that was supposed to happen.
Our security was tight, as former Colonel Nichols well knows.
Our security was as tight as it could be given the personalities involved, but attempts were made.
I like that, the personalities involved. Talking about you, Oppie.
What is that supposed to mean? We've all read his file here. Do we need to talk about Jean Tatlock or the Chevalier incident?
And Robert does not like hearing this at all and gets up. And then we're back at Los Alamos and find out Lominance, this guy that we were just talking about in this meeting, got drafted.
We are at war, Doctor.
Don't be an asshole, Nichols. We need this kid. Fix it, will you?
It wasn't a mistake. Your friend Lominance has been trying to unionize the radiation lab.
You promised to quit all that.
Well, he hasn't.
Again, Robert put his trust in people thinking they would behave the way he expected them to behave.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And Nichols holds out his card.
Your Q clearance came through.
And Robert starts to reach for it, and Nichols pulls it back.
It's important you not maintain or renew any questionable associations.
And Robert takes the card.
Power trips, man. Power trips.
Back at the Gray Board, I think they ask a very important question.
Doctor, did you think social contacts between a person engaged on secret war work and communists was dangerous?
My awareness of the danger would be greater today.
Which is not exactly saying I was wrong or did anything bad.
And it's fair to say that during the war years, you felt that such contacts were potentially dangerous.
And as we're hearing these words, we see him walking down a hallway with a suitcase, and he has flowers.
I've had a lot of secrets in my head for a long time. Doesn't matter who I associate with, I don't talk about those secrets.
And we hear this as Jean is throwing away the flowers.
You left. Not a word. What did you think that would do to me?
I wrote.
Pages of nothing. Where did you go?
I can't tell you.
Why not?
Because you're a communist.
I'm trying to think how to ask this. When you first saw the film,
Mm-hmm.
What was your feeling about Jean and why she needed to see him and what this scene is about?
Well, you know, from my own personal point of view, I've dated a few Jeans in my life. And so for me, I felt a tragic affinity for her because she is a woman of strength, but she's also a woman who's clearly unstable or has emotional issues. And so there is a sense of the broken wing syndrome, which is a thing I had with quite a lot of my life. I was attracted to women with the broken wing syndrome, which I discovered in my therapy, because I thought if I fix them, then they'll be with me. Like I was attracted to them being broken. So then I could be like, well, I will guide them back. But of course, I didn't factor in my own issues, my own insecurities, my own self-esteem problems, my own desire for validation, my own need for them to be grateful to me for me, quote unquote, saving them, right? And I think in a way, Robert is caught up in that cycle with Jean as well. He goes back to Jean because he feels this responsibility to save her, because Robert likes to feel like the savior. Robert likes the ego stroke of being the savior, being the guy in charge, being the guy saving the war, getting the bomb, saving the Jews from the Nazis by getting the bomb, making the bomb first. This is all connected to who he is as a person. And even with his wife, Kitty, saving her from a marriage that she's not happy in to be in a marriage with him. And so this is what you see prevalent. So I think he loves Jean, yes, but I also think there is something he's getting out of that relationship, which is the satisfaction of feeling like he's saving her, trying to save her, which is why he breaks down when she dies.
And that very much reflects how Robert describes the situation to the Gray Board.
She had indicated a great desire to see me before we left. At that time, I couldn't, but I felt that she had to see me. She was undergoing psychiatric treatment. She was extremely unhappy.
So that interpretation, what you just gave, is exactly how I interpreted it as well, which is a needy person, someone trying to fix it, this deep connection between them, and that's what keeps pulling them back together, and the savior complex and all that. And that's probably exactly how I felt the second time I watched the movie. But it has occurred to me as we've been studying this that it's also perfectly possible that she's being pressured by the Communist Party to get information about Robert's research at Los Alamos.
Sure. Very much so.
And every one of those lines could be interpreted that way, which again is the marvelous ambiguity of this film.
Yeah. 100%. You're probably right. Like that could possibly be an element of this for sure. Yeah.
And as he's speaking in the Gray Board, the camera is sort of in an over-the-shoulder going past the attorney to Robert, and it is moving, it is tracking behind his head.
Did you find out why she had to see you?
And now, as we're moving in the same tracking over-the-shoulder shot, Robert is sitting in front of this committee naked.
Which I think is fucking genius by Nolan. Listen, that is a pretentious move to play.
Yes.
The obvious, he feels naked in front of these people because they are asking about his most vulnerable relationship of his life. And this could have been played so cheesy, but it works. It really shocks you. And you're like, oh my God, because you care about him. You've grown to care about him. Nolan uses it at the perfect time.
It is. I agree with you. It is so on the nose that if it wasn't done absolutely exquisitely, it would be cheesy.
Yeah.
And it is done absolutely exquisitely.
Yeah.
And his answer to their question is,
because she was still in love with me.
And then we see Kitty behind Oppenheimer react to hearing him say this in this room in front of these people.
Yeah.
And then from the shot of Kitty, Nolan does something even more remarkable, which was we cut to her POV. And now Robert, still sitting in the chair naked, has Jean also naked on top of him as if they are having sex.
Spent the night together, didn't you?
And Jean turns to make eye contact with Kitty as Robert says,
yes.
Listen, again, would that have worked in the hands of another director? I don't know. But I love the way he does it here. And it's not exploitive.
No.
It's meant to convey what the anger Kitty feels at Robert's betrayal. Because from all the stuff I've researched, like she never cheated on him. He cheated on her constantly.
Yeah.
And so to see that, and of course later she's going to say this in a few minutes, like the fact that you said this publicly for everybody to know now. My shame, my embarrassment is now public. And so this is what she sees.
I think this is unbelievable, incredible filmmaking. I mean, there are several. This is why I think this is at least one of, if not possibly the greatest film of the 21st century so far. Because I think there are moments within this movie, and this is one of them, that transcends cinema. I think there are moments in this movie that take cinema to a different place than it has been. And this one, for me, it's funny. End of last year, we did Annie Hall. And Annie Hall is a movie where Woody Allen, mostly for comedy, basically said, I don't have to obey the laws of reality. I can have people walk in and out of scenes. I can turn and talk to Marshall McLuhan. I can do whatever I want to do to create the moment that I want to create.
Right.
And this is that kind of thing, but taken in an incredibly serious direction.
Yeah.
It is and what's so interesting to me about it is that theater for a long time has played with levels of reality. Like particularly once, because it is a false way to do something anyway. I mean, you go all the way back to the Greek chorus, or you go to, no drama or Shakespearean verse. They're all saying this is beyond reality. And then in particular, when film came along, where you could theoretically see, hey, here's the real world, theater got even weirder with Beckett and Ionesco. And like, we can create an abstract space. And film, for the most part, has not played in that realm. film, even if you're doing a science fiction movie, you're doing Lord of the Rings, it's still sort of trying to create a real world, even if it's a fantastical real world.
Yeah.
Nolan isn't doing that throughout this whole film. All the intercutting, all of the sounds that are things like the stomping of the feet and the images that get replayed. Nolan is creating a psychological world.
Yes.
You know, that is really beyond reality. I mean, I think this is a groundbreaking moment for me.
Oh yeah.
100%.
What do you think about them using that like people being like, you as a director, like, would you ever direct a scene like that? Have you directed nudity scenes? Like, what is your feeling about the way he uses this here in the movie?
I have only a couple of times directed anything romantic, and only once, and it was in film school, did I do a sex scene.
Oh.
And I've directed, I love fight scenes, so I've choreographed lots of fight scenes and filmed a bunch of violence. And that was just fun and easy. The most awkward I have ever been on a movie set was trying to direct sexy people. And I think, it's like, and it was our friend Josh Haber was acting. He was in the bed on the bottom beneath a absolutely beautiful actress who later was the star on Jag. And I was not pleased with her, I actually had to be Rob Reiner from When Harry Met Sally, which is she was supposed to have an orgasm. I didn't like the way she was doing it. And so I had to direct this beautiful, almost naked woman on top of one of my best friends, how I would like her to climax. So it was the most awkward, uncomfortable, difficult. Maybe I could do it better today. I'm a little bit more mature than I was then, but no, it's difficult doing that stuff.
The scene, let's stop for a second, the scene, because I also, this is so funny. We're doing Oppenheimer right now. And of course, The Odyssey is out and everyone is talking about Oppenheimer, even people who are not in the movie, but have worked with him in the past. And that's Florence Pugh. And she was being interviewed this past week. And she talked about this particular scene.
Our camera broke when we were both naked and it was not ideal timing. And then we had to figure out how to fix this camera. So Cillian and I are in this room together and it's a closed set. So we're both holding our bodies like this. And this camera surgeon comes into the room and starts doing like on this camera. And I'm like, well, this is my moment to learn. So tell me what's wrong with this camera. Like you just make your moments.
And Pugh said the experience showed her how passionate and skilled the entire Oppenheimer crew was.
Every person on the set was so knowledgeable and was so ready to make this kind of a movie that there was no dull moment. It was all amazing. It felt like we were lucky to be there.
So even a moment like this, which could have really been super awkward, she finds a way to make it a learning moment for herself, but also engaging the cast or the production team to talk about what's going on, giving herself a little more, and probably taking away a little bit of the embarrassment there of being naked like that,
First of all, that's crazy. Second of all, it sounds like they handled it well. Third, I would have done exactly what Florence Pugh did. If I'm feeling awkward, I will talk and I will ask questions. That is 100%. So what exactly is going on there? Oh, and tell me more about that. Just try to get through the horrible moment.
Yeah, exactly.
And you don't have to tell me why. Now that's power.
Not that I enjoy. I'd rather be here for you as you need.
But you have other priorities now.
I have a wife and child.
That's not what either of us is talking about.
This is where I go, she's pushing. It could be that this is under pressure.
She's almost, in a way, if I go with your interpretation of this, which I think is very valid, it could be her trying to convince him to stop. Not only to not even surrender the information, to stop being a part of this in a way so that the Soviets maybe get ahead. I don't know. Possible.
It's so, and it can be both, I mean, she can need him and be unstable. And it's also, the thing too is I've heard this, I can't remember what it was, but basically there was some military thing where they figured out what the attack plan was for it was like a bombing run because the spy was like a guy who worked in the commissary. And he knew because they scheduled like an early meal so the guys could eat before they went. And because of when they scheduled it and something about the fuel usage or something, he said, they're going to attack here at this time, you know? So Oppenheimer, even thinking he's not revealing anything, she could still find out information that might have been very useful to the Russians, you know?
You asked me to come, and I'm glad I did. But I can't see you again.
But what if I need you? You said you would always answer. Not a word.
And he shakes his head. So now he is really ending it with her.
She's devastated. She's devastated.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Which again is like why the first several times I saw it, I was just like, this is their relationship. That's all this is about. And that very well could be all this is about.
Right.
And then we start to hear that percussive sound, that stamping of feet.
Yeah. Did you think that consistent with good security?
As a matter of fact, it was. Not a word.
When did you see her after that?
And then we see a pillow drop and a drop of water go into a tub.
I never saw her again.
I think the stamping of the feet is like the orange in The Godfather. It is the premonition of death, the harbinger of death.
Yeah.
And right, because the stomping of the feet is also the celebration of what he did in in creating the bomb that was dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and him stepping through the bodies that we see later on. And so I think when you hear the stamping, it is the impending death that is coming because of the things that he's doing. And it may be critical moments in the movie where he could have made another decision but didn't. You know, so it's fascinating.
To me, the stamping of the feet is "I am become death, destroyer of worlds."
Right.
And what's so interesting, particularly the older Oppenheimer, like the younger Oppenheimer had some charisma and some energy to him.
Oh, yeah.
And the older Oppenheimer, everything he says is very soft and controlled. And what is going on in the head of this man who's speaking so softly and with such control is the stomping of those feet and the bodies and the blood and the death and all of this that he is responsible for. You know,
yeah, it's a terrible weight to carry.
It's after the meeting. They're getting up, and Kitty is angry.
I can make the last train back to Princeton.
Kitty, I didn't say anything that I hadn't already told you.
Today you set it to history, didn't you?
This is a closed hearing.
If they don't release the transcript, I'm sure you will.
What do you think about Kitty in this situation?
Well, I mean, she's clearly, from what the movie is giving us, reacting to her own mind, seeing Jean having sex with Robert right in front of her. But it's the embarrassment, right? And I don't know. I think this is a bit of a written scene. Do you know what I'm saying? I don't know if this actually happened. I don't remember in the book of that. But like, it's more a matter of to show like Robert is still so naive about these things. And her saying to him, like, why aren't you fighting? Why aren't you pushing back? Why are you letting them rip our lives apart? And you're talking about this so openly. Now it's in the record, and you're naive to think they won't leak it. So my embarrassment now of already standing by you while you cheat on me constantly is now tenfold or 20-fold because the public is going to know about it. And I think that's the moment. I think that's what she's reacting to, is like the embarrassment of her, the public embarrassment of what she's done to stand by him through this stuff, you know?
It's funny. I've thought about this a bunch. And by the way, so what I can tell you that is true is that he had previously told Kitty about Jean. Yeah. She did know about it. And she was there in this deposition. Right. So she did hear him say this. And most of the things that is said in here is from the written record of the deposition. So in that sense, it happened. But whether or not this scene after happened, I don't know. At first, my first reaction was, yes, she is embarrassed to have her dirty laundry pulled out in public, and this is humiliating and awful. And certainly that moment of making eye contact with Jean in that incredible scene we just talked about is really powerful. But as I've watched this more and more, I've kind of started to lean more to the why aren't you fighting thing.
I was under oath.
Well, you were under an oath to me when you went to see Jean. You know, you sit there day after day, letting them pick our lives to pieces. Why won't you fight?
My interpretation has become more, that at a certain point she accepted, to the degree that you can accept such a thing, Robert's serial infidelity.
Right.
Because her relationship with him started as infidelity. I mean,
yes, true. Very true.
You know,
yeah.
but the fact that he will not get up and defend himself and defend her,
Right.
you know, like defend their marriage, fight, is like, and it is such an interesting thing that Robert is so trying to play by the rules when nobody is playing by the rules that he has in his head, when
Right.
nobody is playing by the rules with him.
But I think, you know, he's still processing the guilt of everything, and he's navigating this. And sometimes people like this, regardless of gender, can be frustrating because they think more than they act, and we who want them to act can't understand why they're not acting. But for them, they're still processing everything. They're still analyzing the right move, analyzing what to do here, and they're giving benefit of the doubt, and then they're going to make their assessment. So it can be frustrating, you know, but throughout the whole movie, Robert's never really been a man of action. Remember, it's like Kitty's the one who said, no, you need to lead this crew.
Yeah.
You need to be the one that does this stuff. Robert has never been a man of action other than maybe trying to poison his teacher at the beginning of the movie. So this is something that is ingrained in him as a person.
I think he is. I think he has been a man of action up to a certain degree, but he would not be the Oppenheimer who made the atomic bomb without Kitty kicking him in the ass. You know what I mean?
But, yeah. But even in that scene where like they're about to fight, like he listens to them bicker and bicker and bicker until he makes decisions, right? And I think this is the thing that about him. He's a slower processor, but when he moves, he does move.
And she storms out. And then Garrison, which is Robert's attorney, turns to him and says,
Robert, I'm not putting her up there.
which is setting up a fantastic moment later when she does, in fact, go up there.
I will say one thing about this scene. I don't like that Nolan hangs a lantern on the symbolism. Like the fact that her purse drops and all her shit comes out of her purse. And then he's like, you're letting them talk about our personal lives. Like it wasn't necessary. It just didn't feel necessary. And it was
a little too on the nose for you.
Yes. So, you know, we're praising Nolan, but it's okay to every once in a while say one thing didn't work. So anyway,
We're back at Berkeley, and he's talking to an Army guy who's obviously kind of in charge of security.
Dr. Oppenheimer, it's an honor. Please, take a seat.
I just wanted to check whether I should talk to Lomanitz while I'm here, given your concerns.
I'd say that's really up to you, Professor, but I'd be cautious.
Understood.
And then, just kind of throwing it out there, Robert tries to bring up the guy from Shell. He says,
"Oh, and as regards the union, I wanted to give you a heads up on a man named Eltonton."
A heads up?
Yes, just that he might merit watching is all.
I'd love to get more details.
I have an appointment now, and I'd leave early tomorrow.
Dude, that was not the way to handle this.
Yeah, again, the naivete of him in these situations is truly confounding. A man of such intelligence to be so unintelligent about these kinds of things and not aware of how security and the military and all these people will take these kinds of things seriously and give it more of a look. And to think you can drop this and just kind of walk out and not feel the ramifications of it, I think is a bit unrealistic, you know?
Well, you know what's so weird is that as a leader of any large, complicated organization, your job is to balance the needs of various departments in order to get the most appropriate balance in order to achieve the goal. So you have to say, like, I don't have resources for explosives right now because I need to send those resources over here, or how many people are working on which thing, and you're balancing them. And obviously, Robert Oppenheimer did that beautifully.
Yes.
Now he's balancing these, what in my mind are these sort of ethical ideas, where he goes, all right, I have been contacted. This is a serious thing. It would be wrong of me not to report this thing.
Right.
The guy who brought it to me is a very close friend. It would be wrong of me to throw him under the bus. Therefore, I'm going to try to walk this tightrope where I do the right thing without doing the wrong thing. And he does it in the most ham-handed way. He brings more attention to himself by trying to not bring attention to it than he would have had he just said, this is what happened.
Right. He's better at building an actual bomb than he is at understanding personal bombs that he's walking into, and the electrons and the neutrons and the protons that are involved, and the chemicals and the isotopes and all that stuff that's involved with human bombs. And that's the thing that he is constantly getting scarred by or getting blown up by, are these personal bombs, whether it's Jean or Kitty or the security briefing or Strauss or even here. Like, he does not understand the components of these kinds of things in the way that he understands the components of a bomb. That's why it's constantly blowing up in his face, you know?
And then Nolan does what he does throughout, which is that we're going to explore this sequence from multiple time periods because he's going to be explaining it to Groves in what we assume is a week or two later or some short amount of time later on a train, and also explaining it to the Grey Board many, many years later.
You went back the next morning.
I did. I had to, really. This time there was another man. He said his name was Pash.
Pash. You met Colonel Pash?
So good. I love this scene between them as we're interspersing in between these timelines. It's so good.
And then we're at the Grey
Board. I want
Board.
to say this because I love the scene because it shows that he cares about it. Like, this is the scene where you understand that Groves cares about Oppenheimer, because the way he's addressing him, there's no distance, there's no aloofness. He's actually worried for him, you know?
Yeah, because it's Pash.
Yeah,
because they do such a good job with very little time setting up that this is a scary guy.
Yeah.
Because we go to the Grey Board, and there we meet an older Colonel Pash, which is Casey Affleck, who I think is great.
Colonel Pash, could you please read from your memo dated June 29, 1943?
Results of surveillance conducted on subject indicate further possible Communist Party connections. Subject met with and spent considerable time with one Jean Tatlock, communist, the record of whom is attached.
Now we're back on the train, and Groves is explaining that Pash is head of security of the project.
He's the head of security for the project. Shouldn't I know him?
No, he should know you. I would never put you in a room with Pash.
Why not?
Like, Jesus, who's this guy Pash?
When Pash first heard about Lomanitz, he told the FBI he was going to kidnap him, take him out on a boat, and interrogate him in the Russian manner.
And what's so great about the way Nolan is doing this is that we don't know what the Russian manner is.
No.
You know, and we're going to cut away with just the Russian manner sort of hanging in the air over everything. And what we find out later in the movie is that this conversation that Oppenheimer is going to have with Pash was actually secretly recorded.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the what he says in this scene is essentially verbatim from what was actually recorded on the tape. This is this is not written by Nolan. This is what was actually said.
General Groves has placed on me a certain responsibility, and it's like having a child who I can't see by remote control. So to actually meet you is... I won't take up too much of your time.
Not at all. Whatever time you choose.
He makes me so uncomfortable.
Well, Casey's, you know, if he hadn't gotten into those, obviously, if he hadn't done some of the things that he was accused of doing, I think we'd be looking at him possibly having a second Oscar by now. I mean, if you watch Manchester by the Sea, I think that's one of the greatest performances of the last 30 years. It's just an incredible piece of work by him. And so to see him coming in and playing this character in such a way that's so unsettling, you have to be such a really good actor to play a character like this that unsettles you from the moment you watch him and see him. Not in the way that's not in a way that's one-dimensional like fucking Billy Zane in Titanic, but in a way that echoes some of the people you have met in your life who were either your supervisors, your teachers, your parents, your church elders, who have a little bit of that evil streak and desire to be in control at whatever cost over you. We've all met people like this. And so the fact that he portrays this in a way that can evoke a personal response from all of us who watch it, I think is incredible work as an actor. You know,
I mean, honestly, like a movie you introduced me to, The Assassination of Jesse James.
Oh yeah,
has it's not the same. Right. It's not the same, but you go like, this guy I don't know how I feel about this guy. He's making me uncomfortable.
No, you're absolutely right. Exactly. He does that in that film as well. You just don't know what he's going to do at any moment, and it really gives you the creeps. Yeah. This is more that character in a level of power, which would really unsettle.
Mr. Johnson told me of a conversation you had yesterday in which I'm very interested. It's had me worried all day.
Yes, well, I didn't want to talk to Lomanitz without authorization.
That's not the particular interest that I have. It's something a little bit more, in my opinion, more serious.
I don't know why, but every word he says, I'm like,
Now, when the FBI pointed out that such information wouldn't be admissible in court, Pash made it clear he had no intention of leaving any witness left to prosecute. Now, the FBI talked him down, but that's the man you're dancing with.
That is a true story, by the way. He did go to the FBI and say he wanted to interrogate Lomanins in the Russian manner.
Jesus Christ.
And that there would be no witnesses.
A man attached to the Soviet consul indicated through intermediate people to people on this project that he was in a position to transmit information.
And I want to point out that Oppenheimer just anonymized everything. He didn't say a man approached me.
Right.
He certainly didn't say Chevalier, my friend, approached me. He said a man approached somebody on the project. And then, oh man, Oppenheimer handles this so terribly. Because Pash naturally asks, why would someone on the project want to do that?
Frankly, I can see that there might be an argument for the commander-in-chief informing the Russians they're our allies, after all, but I don't like the idea of it going out the back door. It might not hurt to be on the lookout for it.
So what he said was he's actually pro sharing information with the Russians. It's just the method that he doesn't really like.
Yeah. And the kind of information. A certain kind of information he's fine sharing. Let me tell you, what's occurring to me in my mind, and I never thought this before, but this sometimes sparks conversation, or this idea sparks in my head from our conversations. Pash is essentially human quicksand. The more you struggle, the more you're sinking into his trap, right? He's
great metaphor.
Yeah. Because I mean, Oppenheimer is floundering here, and he actually thinks that he can outsmart this guy in this conversation, but you can tell he is the submissive to the dominant here. It's so obvious.
I know I've said this before, but obviously there's the Dunning-Kruger effect, which is basically that your ability to know your ability at something is based on your ability at that thing. So people who suck at driving can think they're an excellent driver because they don't really know anything about good driving. There's a related one, which is that we tend to believe that if we're really good at one thing, we must be really good at all things.
Oh, yes.
And so if you're the world's greatest neurosurgeon, you think you know a lot about cars, but you don't. Oppenheimer is, among the world's greatest at certain things. So he walks around thinking that this guy Pash is nothing to me. I can outsmart this guy. He's just but you can't. Back with Groves, we find out why Oppenheimer's take on this was the worst for Pash, because he's Russian and he actually went back to Russia to fight against the Bolsheviks, which is also true after the revolution.
There are people like this. Jesus, there are people like this.
Would you be a little more specific?
There's a man whose name was mentioned to me a couple of times, Eltonton. I believe he's a chemist who works at Shell.
I just want to say, this is line 101, but the statement, I believe he's a chemist who works at Shell. Oppenheimer is trying to distance himself from this knowledge. I've kind of heard vaguely. He knows he's a chemist who works at Shell. He's met the guy, know.
And by the way, Pash is seeing through all of this.
Oh, yeah.
And he is just walking him into it, walking him right into it.
And you thought Pash would be satisfied with that?
I was attempting to give them Eltonton without opening a can of worms. I told them a cock and bull story.
So now he's told Groves that essentially he lied.
Yes.
And then Groves is at the Gray Board answering questions about the Chevalier incident. And he says,
he was under the influence of the typical American schoolboy attitude that there's something wicked about telling on a friend.
I think there is something wicked about telling on a friend, depending on the level. It's not that there's no morally clean way to do this.
Right.
If you're out with a buddy who's married and he flirts a little bit with the waitress and says, hey, don't tell my wife that I was flirting with the waitress. That's one level. If you're out with a buddy who is married and he seduces the waitress, wants and says, hey, can I take her to your place for sex? And please don't tell my wife. Now we're at a different level. And if you're out with a buddy who's married and he takes out the waitress and murders her and asks you to cover it up, we're in different places here. You know, like the friend, the wicked telling on a friend takes a back seat. And in this case, it takes a back seat, frankly, to world war and nuclear weapons, you know?
Right. 100%.
Well, now, might we know through whom the contact was made?
I love the way he speaks because it's just, he's being so polite about this whole thing.
That would involve people who ought not to be involved in this.
Is that someone a member of the project?
A member of the faculty, yes, but not on the project, no.
Oppenheimer, you could see him squirming on the hook.
Like
you know,
said,
just trying to get out.
Getting deeper and deeper, and no one can throw him a tree branch or a rope to climb out of this quicksand.
So Eltonton made his approach through a member of the faculty here at Berkeley.
As far as I know, yes. But there may have been more than one person involved. Gentlemen, if I seem uncooperative, I think you can understand it's because of my insistence in not getting innocent people into trouble.
The gentleman I think you can understand is the one where he's really missed the boat here.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. I think Groves does like Oppenheimer.
Yes.
You know?
100%.
You're trying to protect your friend. Who's protecting you?
You could.
If you gave me the name.
If you order me to, I'll do it.
That's a mistake, Robert. You need to volunteer this name.
That's an abdication of responsibility.
He does this all the time in his personal life. That's what makes him an interesting protagonist for a film like this. Because for all he created at this stage, right now, he is a person who is trying to think he's a good person while like doing these things that a good person wouldn't do. And I don't mean building the bomb. I mean just the way he's throwing Elton onto the bus to try to save, was it Lomovitz? It's just, there's little things, Lomovitz. There's little things he's doing that like, you have such a sliding scale of what your morality or principles or morals or ethics are. What are we doing here? You know, and you're trying to explain it all away as if your code is the right code when there's so many holes in your code, you know. And Groves is also trying. Groves is giving the benefit of the doubt, but if Groves really wanted to go after him, he could. He could absolutely just demolish him in this exchange for the naivete he has in a situation like this and the hubris.
I mean, Groves says you have to volunteer it. It's
right.
It's not an order, but it's kind of close to it. And Robert, we find out later in the gray board, he does eventually tell Groves, but it's months later.
You seem as persistent.
Well, you are persistent, but that is your job. And my job is to protect the people that work for me.
He so wants to play by the Marquis of Queensberry rules, you know? This is your job, and I am doing my job, and we're honorable people together doing our jobs.
He's also trying to kiss his ass, thinking that's going to stop him, and it's not. It's like not even remotely close. He doesn't need you to kiss his ass and give a fuck who you are, you know?
Well, and Pash is playing by an entirely different code of ethics. If he has, his code of ethics is, I will do whatever is necessary to protect America from the Russians.
Yes.
That is his code.
And there are plenty of people in the military who feel this way, from my experience.
You want me on that wall. You need me on that wall.
Exactly.
Instead of us going on certain steps, which may come to your attention and be disturbing to you, I would like to discuss those with you first.
When Pash says certain steps that will be disturbing to me, and I hear about the Russian manner.
Yeah. It's a great cameo from Casey in this scene, man. These scenes, so good.
And then back at the gray board, what we find out is that he expended tremendous resources trying to find Chevalier. So even if we say that Robert, we agree with his choice to not share the information, resources which could go to fighting the war in another way were wasted because Robert wouldn't say this guy's name.
I was gone by the time Oppenheimer finally offered it up.
Gone.
They felt my time would be better spent in Europe determining the status of the Nazi bomb project.
Who did?
General Groves.
So Groves still protected Robert.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. But it also protected the project because they got to build the damn bomb. There's two ulterior motives, you know.
So, by the way, let me tell you a little bit more about our good friend Pash.
Yes.
After World War II, he joined an organization that had been called the OSS, but became the CIA, where he specialized in what were called wet operations. Wet operations includes assassinations, kidnapping, torture. He was it's so funny. I remember when we did JFK and we talked about all the movies that we have done that connected to JFK, including any of the movies with astronauts, the space, the Godfather films, all sorts of movies connect back to JFK. Well, guess what? This is another, because one of the things Pash was advising the CIA on were the assassination attempts on Castro, where he met and mentored our good friend G. Gordon Liddy. Was a disciple of Pash.
Wow.
Yeah, all this stuff came up in the Church Report, which we talked about before, which is, when all of the dirty tricks of the CIA and the FBI came out.
And that's still going on today, by the way. Like, we're seeing a lot of violations of things that we've seen in the past as being lines or walls or do not cross markers are all being crossed in the supposed pursuit of protecting the United States of America. But it's up to you to decide if you believe that stuff or not. And having been in the military, I as I watch some of these testimonies, and having been in military intelligence, I can most assure, in my mind, it is mostly bullshit. And so it's frustrating to see that stuff happening, because there are a lot of great people, a lot of great soldiers, but the leaders themselves are doing things to help themselves rather than necessarily help the country. And I do think you can go too far, as Pash has shown us. But I also think there have been moments where we have needed to go that far in order to protect our country. So it's always a murky line, Steve. I'm sure, and you've read enough books about this kind of stuff. I'm sure you know that as well.
Yeah, no, that's how I feel. Well, it's like what we said earlier. It's that there's most of the time we should be following the rules.
Right.
And there's sometimes where you can't follow the rules, and it was necessary to do something. I wish there were a way to gather the statistics on all the times we broke the rules, did terrible things, and how often did that work out well.
Yeah.
Because my guess, the number is vanishingly small, where the long-term consequences of doing some of these things actually was good for was good for America, good for the world, brought peace and prosperity to everybody. Frequently not.
We're still dealing with the nuclear bomb that they built in this movie, right? Yeah.
Well, and we're still dealing with black ops. I mean,
yes,
Iran has good reason to hate the United States because we messed with them over and over and over again for decades, and we're dealing with those consequences. We're dealing with the consequences in Afghanistan. We deal with the consequences in Iraq. We deal with the consequences of messing around all over the world. And sometimes it was necessary and we got good things out of it. And a lot of times we're just dealing with the consequences. We're back at Los Alamos at a lovely Christmas party. By the way, I just want to point out, and I don't have the costume designer's name in front of me, but the epicness of what they had to accomplish dealing with men, women, children in multiple different eras, early 20s in Europe, 30s in Berkeley, World War II, late 40s, early 50s. They had to costume all these people, including everyone who's at this Christmas party right now. It is a big job. Robert goes up to talk to Ruth Tolman, who and this is what's so funny about this is, like, the first time I watched the movie, I had no idea who this person was.
Yeah,
because you can't really track it. There's so much going on. But
because he disappears for long stretches of the movie.
And but once you watch it a few times, you're like, oh, this is the person whose house he stays at in Pasadena, who he's having an affair with. And now he goes up to Ruth because Tolman has gone missing and he wants to talk to her about it.
Come on, Ruthie. Can't tell me, who can you tell?
Compartmentalization, RP. What makes you think I know where he is anyway?
Because you do a pretty good job of knowing who Mr. Tolman is when it counts.
Like now?
So there's a lot in those couple of lines.
Yeah.
To be clear, is he still having an affair with Ruth now that he's married with Kitty?
Of course.
Yep.
Yes. Yeah.
And I believe he just pivoted from, I don't know where your husband is. It's important that we find Professor Tolman, to your husband's away. Let's go have sex. Am I correct on this?
I think that's pretty much the coded language that's being used there. Yes.
Okay, good.
With Kitty, because Kitty's watching him too, right?
Yeah.
We keep getting shots of her watching them, so clearly she knows what's going on as well. And we've just had the reveal of the thing with Jean.
Yeah. And then Groves is there, gets everyone's attention because Niels Bohr. We have Niels Bohr back. He tells this story, which is also true, of him not wearing the oxygen mask properly when he was on a flight and passed out. I mean, the dude could have died. I mean, it's really, really scary. But he makes a joke about that. And then he whispers with Oppenheimer.
Is it big enough to end the war? To end all war?
And this is this other idea that Niels believes that this could be, this terrible, terrible weapon could somehow bring peace on Earth.
Yeah, and I always, I think this is a great moment because it's like, I forget that sometimes people did believe that. Like, or is this rationalization by the scientific community to validate their desire to create this thing? We're creating it so that we can end all wars. Or is it ego? Is it doing it because you can, right? That's what I love about Ian Malcolm's line in Jurassic Park. They were so obsessed with doing it, they didn't stop to think that whether they should do it at all. And I think some version of that. And I think that is always the case with science. And so Niels Bohr is saying, to end all wars, it's an idealistic thing. And I think people give humanity too much credit. We're never going to find world peace. Never. Doesn't mean we shouldn't strive for it. Doesn't mean we shouldn't fight for it. Doesn't mean we shouldn't try to do it with every fiber of our beings. But we're never. There's just too many nefarious actors in the process, too many nefarious human beings who are invested in us not achieving that will try to stop it at every turn. So I think there's an idealism here that's convenient for 1940s, but it's not realistic.
I fully agree with you. I don't think we'll ever, I honestly don't. The one place I maybe don't agree is I don't even think you need nefarious people. You can have two people each defending their country and their rights and absolutely committed to whatever they're committed to that end up in war with each other.
Yeah.
Like this idea that it's I forget the term for it now, but there's an idea in psychology where people want to believe that humans are rational creatures, that we make decisions based on facts for the right reasons, and that is not true at all. Yep. Humans are capable of being rational creatures.
Of course. Yeah.
But we are not always rational creatures. We are always flawed. We always see our needs as more important than other people's needs. We make all of these terrible mistakes. And there are, to your point, very nefarious people out there. It's like, I mean, it's one thing to go, could you trust Gandhi with a nuclear bomb? And I'm like, absolutely yes. There's no way Gandhi launches the nuclear bomb.
Right.
Could you trust Osama bin Laden with a nuclear bomb? Absolutely not. No way. Could you trust Hitler with a nuclear bomb? No way. Could you trust many presidents of the United States with a nuclear bomb? I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe yes, maybe no. Like the big problem is that we don't know who we're going to get. It's that there are all sorts of people that get power that we don't want to have power, but they're going to have power. So I think Niels Bohr, I agree with you. I think he's being incredibly naive, except for the thing that I said before, which is we did have the longest peace and the least violent death in the Cold War era.
Yeah.
So to some degree, maybe we had Soviet leaders and American presidents who were wise enough to not destroy the world.
Yes. Yeah, I guess so. Yes. I mean, there were still many wars going on during the time of the Cold War. It just wasn't us against the Russians on a battlefield. But certainly there were a lot of smaller countries whose citizenry would tell us both, like, oh, there were still wars. you know, and so
absolutely. But there was nothing on the scale of World War II and World War I. There's with 30 million death. You know, it's like nothing like that has happened.
Sure.
And then Niels Bohr, we find out, had met with Heisenberg. And what we find out, and I won't go into the details, but Oppenheimer listens to it and realizes that the Germans took a wrong turn and the Americans are ahead. And then Robert talks about Niels joining the project, and he pulls him aside and says,
I'm not here to help, Robert. I knew you could do this without me.
Why did you come?
To talk about after. The power you're about to reveal will forever outlive the Nazis. And the world is not prepared.
As I said earlier, Nolan does such an excellent job. Once we make this turn, more and more people start to, a few scenes ago, more and more people start to question what's going to happen after. More and more people start to worry about what the ramifications of this is, right? And Nolan's script does such a great job of just kind of opening these layers. And as we get to the prize underneath, or what we're going to eat underneath, these little layers are opening up now that are going to be what decorates the back half of the movie. This idea of doing it, the ramifications of doing it, and the price and consequences that are paid, not just in physical lives that were murdered, killed, but the people who deal with the after effects of what they've done and the decisions they've made. You know, and Niels Bohr coming in, who's only in the film, for fucking 5 minutes. He has a really poignant thing to start this and put the idea in the audience's mind as well as we go forward with this. Because we can get caught up with like, who's making the bomb? It's coming together. They're getting closer, the sweeping music, but there's ramifications to what you're doing. And I like that Nolan consistently touches base with us to remind us that there is a price for what they're about to do. You know?
And Robert references something that Niels said to him when he was a young man.
You could lift the stone without being ready for the snake that's revealed.
We have to make the politicians understand this isn't a new weapon. It's a new world.
And I will say that we are in this moment right now. I mean, that's what AI is. And is that it is a world-changing technology that we do not understand. And the big thing, I think, is that as radical and powerful the atomic bomb was, it's relatively easy to understand. You know what I mean? It's a really, really big bomb that can kill a lot of people. AI is not easy for us to understand. The scientists who developed it don't actually understand it. Like this is we're in this place and we are hurtling towards a destination without knowing where we're going at this moment.
Yeah. And little things are happening that are like people aren't registering and they're just going on with their lives. But like yesterday, it was revealed, OpenAI said that 2 of its artificial intelligence models went rogue and successfully hacked into Hugging Face, a digital library of AI technology. And this happened last week. They told us yesterday, but it happened last week while they were testing the cybersecurity capabilities of its systems. That's fucking scary, man.
No, we well, and this is where I'm Oppenheimer because I'm like, we need worldwide conference with the Chinese to start negotiating. How do we regulate this thing? How do we control it? And we're not doing that right now, you know?
Because people want to use it as a weapon, like the bomb. You're so right, Steve. You're so right.
Well, and it is a race. They say we have to beat China. We have to beat China. We have to be, this is the most important thing where it's like, so we're all rushing forward full speed. China is more open about AI than the US is at the moment. The Xi Jinping just made a speech that was, hey, we need, you know, because their AI is open source, so we can see what they're doing. And he says, hey, we should get together and start talking about this. And no reply from the Americans.
Of course. Because of who's running.
I'll be out there doing what I can, but you're an American Prometheus, the man who gave them the power to destroy themselves. And they'll respect that. And your work really begins.
Which is certainly what Oppenheimer does in the future to some degree, to try to, you know, find ways to not have a race, you know, to end, to not have a Cold War. I also think, listening to this line, that I don't think Niels Bohr read the whole Prometheus story because that guy ended up on a cliff wall having his liver eaten by eagles every day.
Yeah.
You know? And then a woman walks in awkwardly, tells Robert he has a call from San Francisco. And then we cut to Kitty riding on a horse, and she finds Robert completely wrecked, shivering in the cold against a rock.
Robert! Robert. Robert. What happened?
Your father called. He found her yesterday in the bath.
And then again, we have the shot of the pillow dropping and the water droplet. And we see Jean with her head kneeling at the bed, at the tub with her head underwater. And this is very much the Robert that we met at the beginning of the movie, you know?
Yeah.
Totally incapacitated.
Who?
She's taken pills. Left a note, not signed. She took barbiturates, but there was chloral hydrate in her blood.
And now we see Jean's head underwater again, except there is a hand forcing her down into the water that pulls away. And then, as we're hearing her name and Robert talks a little bit more, we see it again, her kneeling at the bath, and she puts her own head underwater, killing herself. So we've seen two versions of this.
Yeah.
I think Christopher Nolan might be the best at structured, planned ambiguity of anyone. And I will draw your attention to the spinning top at the end of Inception, which is like, he is saying very clearly, we don't know what happened here.
Yeah.
You know?
It's very much JFK-ish.
Yeah.
Right? Like this sequence, like what happened here. And, you know, when I saw the movie, I did a little bit of research on that. And there are still stories that claim that she was killed as a CIA thing because she was a Russian or a communist sympathizer.
We were together. She said she needed me. I told her I wouldn't. I told her I could. No, it was me.
And again, Kitty, it's funny, you know, Emily Blunt, it's not like she has that much time in the film.
No.
But
you're right.
every moment that she's in the film, she is surprising and powerful and interesting.
You don't get to commit the sin, and then have us all feel sorry for you that it had consequences. You pull yourself together. You know, people here depend on you.
Again, she is the one spurring him into action, so to speak, in the situation, get back to level. This is very similar to the Godfather scene with, I don't know what to do. You can act like a man. Yeah, that's basically what she's saying
exactly,
to him.
yeah.
Right? Aside from the slapping him in the face, she's essentially saying that. She shakes his jacket and says, you have a responsibility here. You have a bigger responsibility. And you don't get to make me feel sorry for you about the woman you were cheating on me with dying. Like, it's just a really powerful thing. And it's the rare moments in the film that people call him out, like really put him in his face. Kitty is one of the only people that does that in the whole movie.
So we have a question from patron Ryan Lieb, who asks about exactly what we're talking about, which is the shot of the hand pushing her under the water. It references the theory that her death may have been an assassination, but the assassination plot is not explored or referenced in any other way in the film. Was this shot confusing or distracting to you? And do you think it's implying that she was murdered? You think about this question, and I will share a little bit more information that I have about Jean's death.
Okay.
So first of all, her father found her body.
Mm-hmm.
He found her kneeling at the side of the tub with her head under water, which is an odd way for someone to kill themselves.
Agreed.
Her father did not call the cops. Instead, he searched her apartment for 4.5 hours, found a bunch of letters of hers and burnt them. Wow. We do not know what was in those letters.
Wow.
Finally, after he did all that, then he called the cops. She had drugs in her system. Some of them she did work as a psychiatrist and worked on drugs. She also was maybe self-medicating. But one of the drugs, as Robert Oppenheimer said, was chloral hydrate was found in her system. Chloral hydrate is what people would call a Mickey Finn, a way to drug someone unconscious. And again, as I said, all the things about Pash, this was not beyond him. It's also perfectly possible that because she failed to get information from Robert Oppenheimer, that she was killed by the communists. Or it's possible she was clearly a troubled person. It is also possible that she did kill herself, albeit in a very strange way.
I love the way Nolan handles it in the movie because I like that he does this. There are things he can and needs to take a stance on as a director from his point of view, and there are other things that he leaves up in the air for us to decide. You haven't seen the Odyssey yet, and we're recording it before you go see it, but like the way he handles the siren scene, I think is the signature of a brilliant filmmaker. And when you see it, we'll have a conversation about it, of course, but it has shades of what he does here. He lets the audience decide. And so I like that it's up to us to decide if she was killed or not. It's up to us to decide whose point of view we're seeing in this flashback. Is it the film's flashback? Is it Kitty's flashback? Is it Robert's flashback? Whose flashback are we seeing to her death? So it's an interesting moment, but it's up for us to decide. And I think that's a smart move. On certain things being ambiguous, it is a smart move because Jean doesn't factor in to be that important later on or for the rest of the movie. This is the end of her kind of influence, so to speak, in the movie. And it's you see the reaction. So yeah, I like the way he does this. And I like the way it's staged. It's really sad and tragic and brutal.
Yeah. I think it's the other reason I like that it's ambiguous is because it actually is ambiguous.
Yes,
exactly. There are a lot of filmmakers who go, "Oh, she was murdered," and I'm going to show the murder. You mentioned JFK. Yeah. JFK is a movie that shows a bunch of different stuff, but then Garrison at the end tells you this is what happened.
Right.
And what Nolan is doing here is he's saying we have some information, but we don't know. We will never, ever know whether or not Jean was murdered. Right. And that is the feeling he wants us to have. That Oppenheimer will never know whether or not Jean was murdered. Right. I mean, Oppenheimer could be thinking, maybe he heard about Pash in the Russian manor. Mm-hmm. So he could be thinking, I got her murdered. By saying what I said to Pash, that sent them to Jean, and that's why she was killed.
Right. Very possible.
And now Oppenheimer does go back to Los Alamos, but there is something different. He is sitting in a room where the scientists are having a heated argument about ignition and whether or not to use implosion. And Teller is pissed off and people are pissed at Teller because he's not doing his job. And finally, they're just like, I can't work with you. Storms out of the place.
Yeah.
And Oppenheimer has sat kind of his head in his hands this entire time. And I think he is still back with Jean. I don't think he's gotten out of this yet.
Well, we have to see where he ends up, right? We have to see the progression of how Oppenheimer ends up, how he ends up in that security meeting with Robbie Robb and all those people. A broken, measured, quiet dude, right? So these instances, when we go back to them, we have to see how he ends up here. So the progression of it. So in that quiet moment when he's just like, it's almost like he's an exhausted teacher in a room full of kindergartners. Yep. And he's just letting them go off to blow off steam. And then he jumps up and assigns things and walks out to go after Teller. So yeah, you're seeing that he's like distracted for sure, but also weighing the pain of this program because Jean is the one that said to him when he's like, well, I'm going to have a wife and kids, or, I've got all these things. And she's like, that's not what we're talking about. It's the program. It's this bomb that took you away from me. So in that moment, as you said, he's thinking about Jean. It's the guilt he feels about with Jean, but also he's still going forward with this thing that drove him away from Jean. So I wonder if all of that is hanging in his head as well.
I'm sure you've had the moment where different voices are echoing in your head, different things that people said just keep coming back. And that's what I think. Obviously, we can't know what's in Oppenheimer's head, but I think he is definitely hearing those words from Jean. And the other words that are echoing in his head is Kitty saying, you don't have the right to do this, and saying there are people who depend upon you.
Yes.
And those words are echoing in his head. And finally, in the end, I think it's Kitty's words that win out, and Oppenheimer comes back to life.
Kirsty, you replace Neddemeyer. Seth, I'm putting you on plutonium. Lily, you go work for Kirsty because he needs you. Fuchs, You take Teller's role. I'm putting you exclusively on the implosion device.
And then he goes and chases after Teller, who is stopped at the gate because they will not let him leave.
No, I won't let you leave. Forget Hans. Forget fission. Stay here. Research what you want. Fusion, the hydrogen bomb. Whatever. We'll meet to discuss.
It's an interesting move because he's kind of was against the hydrogen bomb the whole time before, and he will be against the hydrogen bomb the whole time after. But right now he's saying, go ahead and do it.
That's what I want to ask you. Like, why do you think he keeps him there? Is it just out of friendship and loyalty, as we were talking earlier about him trying to protect Chevalier and all of this stuff? Do you think this is an extension of that, him wanting to, in essence, protect Teller and keep him around because he respects his mind, his intelligence? Maybe he's the one guy that he knows could be the person who speaks reason to him in a critical moment. I don't know.
I think it's much more the latter for me. I personally, of course, this is what's so fascinating about this movie is we spend all our time with this guy Oppenheimer. We can't really get in his head. But my opinion, I don't even think he likes Teller. I don't think it's like, I don't think this is a loyalty one at all. I think he sees in Teller a genius that maybe is comparable to his own. And that he realizes this is an asset that I need to keep around. And for what you said, which is, Teller's a guy who's going to tell him if he's wrong. And a bunch of these other guys would not.
Yeah. I also think, Steve, I'm sure you realize this in life. We're attracted to people who aren't lost in the overthinking quagmire of should I or should I not? And what's my responsibility to my gift or my talent or my ability? Teller has none of the things that Oppenheimer has. Teller's not sitting around in a corner weeping for Gene or wondering if he's doing the right thing. Or Teller is very clear about what he wants to do. He's almost dismissive of anyone else who dares to come question him for what he do, like he does with Hans. Like he's very much clear about what he's doing and where he's going. There is no ambiguity. But with Oppenheimer, there's constantly ambiguity, overthinking, contemplation, mental health issues. Teller radiates none of that. And I wonder if that's also an element of why he wants to keep Teller around, because Teller is an opposite of him in that way as well.
Yeah, I mean, to me, Teller, like where Oppenheimer is constantly wrestling with the moral questions and trying to balance everything perfectly, I think Teller goes, I think there's a way to make a really, really big bomb, so I want to make a really, really big bomb.
Exactly.
That's it. You know? He just wants to do it. And
the Teller movie would be a vignette, not a 3-hour epic. Yeah.
The next moment is really interesting too.
You're a politician now, Robert. You've left physics behind many, many years ago.
To some degree, that's true. I mean, when Robbie said you can't be in charge of the theoretical branch because you don't have the time to do that, I think that's true. He stepped away a little bit from the physics. But Oppenheimer says, and I think sincerely,
once a week. 1 hour, you and me.
This is good man management. This is good man management. Yeah.
And I think the scientist in Oppenheimer is curious about what Teller is coming up with. Yeah. And I love his turn to the guards and just goes, now race this fucking barrier. And they do. Here's the thing that just struck me right before we started recording, which is that we just had this section where you and I both talked a lot about Oppenheimer wrestling with the moral questions of should I give Chevalier's name up?
Yeah.
And what's really interesting about this movie is, as I said at the very beginning, David Lean said that an epic is the mix of the grand and the personal, the wide shot and the close-up. And here's a perfect example of that, which is what's tearing Oppenheimer apart is these issues of loyalty to his friends and betrayal and not wanting to see innocent people hurt. That's the personal. What he's actually doing is building a device which will kill hundreds of thousands of people and potentially kill millions of people in the future.
Yeah.
And he's not torn up wrestling with those moral questions in the way he was torn up for the very personal questions of just this one guy, Chevalier, who is his friend.
Well, because we all know that everything is in theory until it happens. And you don't confront the things that you do until it happens. And so, but we know that after he drops the bomb, Steve, all the things you talk about, he is consumed by. He is constantly thinking about. He is contemplative about. So, but for right now, it's still a Like it's not a reality yet, even though they're working towards it. It's not a reality. So he doesn't necessarily need to be caught up in it because I don't think his ego, right? But the other scientists will, which we'll see in a little bit.
Back at the Gray Board, they ask about the development of the super and point out that, but you were against it later on.
No. I pointed out technical difficulties with it.
Didn't you try to kill it at the AEC meeting after the Russian bomb test?
No.
But that was the recommendation of the AEC, was it not?
After hours of discussion about the best response.
I think Oppenheimer's attempts to be slippery are his least attractive qualities.
Absolutely.
We're back at the AC, and man, Nolan comes up with a beautiful metaphor to show us visually what we're talking about, because we see Robbie with a protractor over a Russian map, drawing circles showing the sheer destructive power of the super.
An H-bomb is 1,000 times the power of an A-bomb. Its only intended target would be the largest cities. It's a weapon of mass genocide.
Izzy, draw some circles on this side of the map where they would target us, starting with New York.
That's DC.
And then we hear the stomping feet begin again. And then they bring up, which is what the world you and I grew up with, was these giant weapons will act as deterrents.
Nuclear talks, obviously, right? And so, or arms talks, obviously. But this is so fascinating because I think this is a quick breakdown of how people see things in a way that's important. One side thinks about, look at the damage we're going to cause. The other side thinks about, look at what could happen to us. And we see that playing out right now, Steve. And we try not to be too deep, but like there's political, but there's legitimately right now the idea of there's a certain section of the country who thinks we're absolutely doing the right thing in Iran because we want to stop Iran from getting a nuclear weapon because it could affect us. We could die, right? But there are a large portion of the country that's also like, look at all the things that are happening. Look at all the people we are killing. Look at the schoolgirls that we killed on that attack or were possibly indirectly involved in their deaths because of what we're doing, right? There are always going to be people who don't want to kill a lot of people in trying to negotiate some level of peace. And there are other people who are like, no, we have to do this and do these horrible things because they're going to come after us. And so that's what you see playing out here between Robbie and Strauss, that thing that happens in all of us, in every country, I think.
Well, and the thing is, we don't know. We don't know.
Right.
Like we can't, we don't know what Iran was going to do.
Right.
We don't know what the future holds. And our actions always have consequences, frequently unintended. There's a moment in The West Wing where someone asks Bartlett, and it's about an issue just like this. And they ask, why is an American life more valuable than another life in some other country? And Bartlett's response is, I don't know, but it is. Which is a difficult response, and to some degree, I go for the president of the United States. They have to provide for the common defense.
Yes.
Part of their job is to value American lives more highly than other lives.
Yes.
So I'm not saying that's a wrong answer for the president, but in my mind, lives are lives. There are people I care about that would upset me much more if they died than people I've never met. That's certainly true. But there are people who care about those people who would be just much more upset if they died than if my family died. Humans are humans, and all are valued exactly the same, no matter where you are, in my mind.
Yeah, but I think we always have a cognitive dissonance in that, don't we? Like we always, as you said, when it's specific, when it's personal versus general, it's always that part of this. It's always an element of these kinds of things for sure. Because I'm not choosing either side on the Iran thing. I want to make that clear. I'm just presenting how this is the same argument we're having right now.
Well, and it's so much about the future. It's about and the one thing humans really, really suck at is predicting the future.
True. Very true.
You drown in 10 feet of water or 10,000, what's the difference?
And then we see the moments of the celebration of the atomic bomb, and Oppie is lost in this moment. And we do this several times, which is the sound builds, and then it stops. And they've finally gotten his attention.
As I said, Teller's designs are still as impractical as they were during the war.
An hydrogen bomb can be made to work, Oppie. You know that.
I don't believe we should commit all our resources to that chance.
Then how would you have Truman reassure the American people?
Now we've brought in public relations.
Yep.
It's not just strategic with the Russians, it's how are the American people going to feel? And Oppenheimer continues to say, by negotiating and by creating treaties and things like that.
By which you mean world government.
The United Nations, as Roosevelt intended.
Well, I asked what Truman should do, right? The world's changed. It's not fascism, but communism that now threatens our survival.
I don't have answers to these questions.
No, and we never will. It's always just a matter of what we think is best collectively or for whoever is in power to decide that in those moments for us.
When I was a kid and even, or maybe in high school, and even more naive and hopeful than I am now, certainly much more hopeful, I was all into the idea of world government. I thought, we're just going to slowly but surely give more power to the United Nations and everyone would live in this idyllic, democratic, prosperous, no war thing. And I don't think that at all anymore. Like that no longer makes sense. In fact, I think world government's not a good idea, because we need to have different countries doing different stuff. But there are times where I wish we had a little bit more world government going on,
Yeah.
particularly to deal with things like AI or climate change, massive, huge things that threaten the world.
I agree.
And finally, Matthew Modine, who's kind of the chair of the committee, says, hey, the committee should have a vote, which straws is not included in.
Yeah.
So as he's heading out, he says,
I'm just not sure you want to go down this road.
With respect, we are the advisory committee. We will give them our advice.
I think it's an arrogance that we've seen over and over again with Oppenheimer's treatment of Strauss. Look, I get it. In a story that we're watching, you want your hero to dismiss the antagonist. You like that. But in the reality of this world that we actually lived in at that time, his treatment of Strauss, as it is portrayed in the movie, is not an intelligent move by him on so many levels.
well, because what he's doing, I mean, obviously he doesn't like Strauss,
right?
But he also is dismissive of him because he sees Strauss as just so far beneath him that he doesn't have to worry about him. And Oppenheimer doesn't realize that he's been poking the bear for years, and that this guy he doesn't understand. It's like, more about physics than you know about people. That was said about Tolman. He doesn't understand who Strauss is.
Right. But that's the thing. His arrogance makes him think he's superior to Strauss because of his intelligence. But he is just as petty, as confused, as selfish, as egotistical as Strauss, and he won't admit it. He won't admit it. Strauss is, at least to his credit, more obvious in what he's doing, whereas Oppenheimer is lost in the self-delusion that he's a better person than Strauss, when he really isn't.
To me, this is perfectly analogous with foreign policy on some level, which is if you keep poking other countries, eventually they don't want to deal with you anymore, and they might even turn on you.
And then somehow you play victim about it, which is really confusing.
For some reason, and I don't believe that, I don't understand why this guy shows up at this scene right now, like why he is at the AEC meeting, but now we meet Borden, who we saw earlier as the guy that's going to send in the file.
During the war, I was a pilot. One night, flying back from a raid, I saw an amazing sight, like a meteor. A V-2 rocket headed England. I can't help but imagine what it will be for such an enemy rocket to carry an atomic warhead.
And now we see missiles, and now we see ripples across the map as the world is being destroyed, and we hear the stomping feet, and then in the most amazing part of the sequence, Robert himself is visualizing himself on the plane. As if he's seen that.
Borden, in a way, accomplishes what Strauss has been trying to get Oppie to look at. And by Oppie visualizing himself in the plane, he in essence understands that what Borden is saying is what Strauss was saying, was that I wouldn't want to see this happening to us, to this country. And so it does give him pause, in a way that Strauss couldn't get him to do.
What's interesting about the Cold War is that on some level, it depends on more faith in humanity, including your enemies. Because if you give a country an arsenal that can destroy the planet, you have to, the only way to live is to assume that the leaders of that country will continually and perpetually be responsible enough and not crazy and not use them.
Yeah.
And I don't actually have that much faith in humanity. I think, as we've said many times, like, you know, you're generally the more cynical one than me.
Yeah.
But I think in any population, there are gonna be some crazy fuckers. There are gonna be some evil people. There are gonna be some stupid people and irresponsible, the whole range. And eventually some horribly stupid, irresponsible, crazy person might make it to be the leader of one of these countries with one of these vast arsenals.
Which is unsettling. Yeah.
And it's the question is, would you trust those people? And that's why I keep going, man, we should get rid of some of these weapons. You know?
Yeah.
Then, and we talked about this moment many times, Izzy comes up.
Poppy, I don't think you want to go up against Strauss.
If we both speak, they listen to me.
When you speak, they hear a prophet. When Strauss speaks, they hear themselves.
Now let's stop there. Those are two very different things.
Yeah.
And honestly, I'll just say this. I think President Obama tried to speak as a prophet, and President Trump tries to speak as ourselves. And those are different things. And they're both can be very, very powerful.
That's why I always enjoyed, well, yeah, I'll say it. That's why I liked Biden. Biden walked the line between both. And whatever people want to say about him or criticize him, I like the fact that he spoke plainly, honestly, but didn't become grandiose. He always believed in our possibilities. And I always liked that he kind of split the difference between the two.
They'll listen to a prophet.
A prophet can't be wrong. Not once.
That line echoes with me since I saw this movie all the time, because it's true. For whatever reason, the people who are idealists who aspire for us to be better, we judge them on a much harsher scale than the people who are full of flaws. And I don't understand it. I'll never understand it, because I don't mind that someone who wants us to do better occasionally missteps. I don't understand being okay with someone who missteps all the time and still wanting to hand them power. It is, or wanting to follow them. It truly is a confounding thing to me. Because science is almost always right. And yes, it occasionally messes up. It occasionally makes a mistake. It will happen. But almost always where it's going is to find the truth within using the numbers. But then people go like, well, no, science got it wrong here, guy right here. So I'm going to believe this other person who is nowhere near as intelligent as the scientists. And that to me is something that is fascinating. But I think it speaks to humanity, doesn't it? Which is what Robbie's saying here. Like when Strauss speaks, they hear themselves. Maybe the reason we're okay with people full of flaws trying to lead us and making mistakes is because we're full of flaws and we make mistakes. And when we see someone who's trying to elevate themselves out of our pack, they better damn well be right all the time, or else we get to destroy them and yank them back down to earth. It's just fascinating.
The one thing I'll say about science, which I feel like people really misunderstand, is that, of course, science makes mistakes all the time.
Yeah.
The difference with science is that it learns from its mistakes. If you are the mistakes are great. The mistakes are fantastic. You go like, I think it's going to work this way. It doesn't work that way. And then you work for a theory that explains it. And then you do another experiment and you see if it succeeds. Science progresses over time. Our science today is 10 times beyond what it was 300 years ago. We've learned all sorts of things. We make better machines. We do better science. And yet, science still can make mistakes all the time. Cognitive dissonance and confirmation bias are real things. And that's why science has these peer review processes, which when they work well, they have like, oh, well, you did this experiment and said this. Well, I couldn't reproduce your experiment. And that happens all the time. And then we go, okay, where did we go wrong? Was the data corrected wrong? All of those things. So the whole point is science. Science is not an opinion. Science is an improving system to get better over time.
How was Mr. Borden able to put together such a detailed indictment? He was no longer a government employee, yet he appears to have had unlimited access to Dr. Oppenheimer's file.
And of course, this is, one of the great mysteries that's set up is that later we'll find out that it was in fact Strauss that handed him this file in order to take down Oppenheimer.
It's a nice little plant for later, for sure.
And now we're up at the gray board with Teller testifying.
I've always assumed, and still assume, that he's loyal to the United States. I believe this, and I shall believe it until I see very conclusive proof to the opposite.
So there we go.
Yeah.
You know, full intent. Yeah, Teller just says you could totally trust Robert Oppenheimer. And then we cut to Oppenheimer, who's riding this horse, and we see these flyers on a pole, and the flyer reads, "The impact of the gadget on civilization." And Oppenheimer walks into an intense meeting where scientists are arguing about, basically, we hear that Hitler has killed himself. Essentially, the war against the Nazis is over. And what is the point of building the gadget?
Hitler's dead. It's true. But the Japanese fight on.
Their defeat seems assured.
Not if you're a GI preparing to invade. We can't end this war.
I think this change in the situation is one thing that I do wish that Nolan gave more time to, because I actually think this is huge.
Yeah.
The reason to build the bomb is that we don't want the Nazis to get a bomb because of what they'll do with it.
That was the whole reason up until this point. Yeah.
The Japanese are not building a bomb. The Japanese have committed tremendous atrocities in China and throughout Southeast Asia. They are fighting tooth and nail on those islands like Iwo Jima. These fights are brutal. Many, many people are going to die. And there is the idea of, I think it's the death of the million or something, of that the idea that the Japanese, to defend the emperor, would fight to the very, very last man if we invaded Japan. Those are real things.
Yeah.
None of which are building an atomic bomb.
But how do we justify using this weapon on human beings?
And Robert very smoothly says,
We're theorists. Yes? We imagine a future, and our imaginings horrify us. But they won't fear it until they understand it, and they won't understand it until they've used it.
A lot of logic in there.
Yeah.
We have to build it so we can use it, so that we can see that we shouldn't have these. That's what he's saying, I think.
Which I think is a little asinine, but I also think it's convenient logic. Now, is it correct? You could argue in retrospect it was correct, but I think we're at the point now where Robert, and this is me doing my own analysis, right? I'm not saying Nolan's intention is this, but that's what we do on the show. We speculate and analyze. I don't care what anybody says about it. We do that on this show, whether you like it or not. And I think in this moment, he is too far gone down this path to build the bomb to stop. I think his ego is involved. I think the fact that he sacrificed Jean for this bomb is an element of this as well. And this is so funny because this kind of is the complete opposite of what he was talking about when he was at Berkeley, organizing these get-togethers behind Pressman's back. Here is his scientists organizing this get-together behind Oppenheimer's back, right? And their arguments, because they're presenting the humanist argument as scientists that the reason to make this bomb was to stop the Nazis. The Nazis are done. We don't need to keep going and making this bomb because we know where it's going to lead, which is the death of hundreds of thousands of people. We should stop. Well, the argument which has been presented all the way till now in people arguing the dropping of the bomb is, well, the Japanese were never going to stop. And Steve, you said something earlier like, we can never know because of there's no alternate dimension, no alternate reality where the Japanese eventually lost too many people and stopped, too many soldiers and stopped. And I wonder, and the argument is, which is what Oppenheimer presents, well, what about the GIs that are going to die in the war? Which is fascinating because he has never presented this argument before. But we just heard Strauss say how, what about the people, why don't you draw those circles around the cities that are going to be affected by the bombs in America if we don't find a way through this whole situation or stop the Russians from getting the bomb. Or the Soviets from getting the bomb. So this is so interesting that all of a sudden he's like speaking for the GIs or speaking for the soldiers when he has never really done so up until this point. So how much of this is convenient logic? How much of this is his actual beliefs? And I think all of it is kind of mixed in because he is, in the end, wants to build this bomb for status, for legacy. I don't think now that the Nazis are not involved killing the Jews, it's a whole different perspective or reason for building this bomb. And I understand that soldiers dying would be horrible, but you can make a case that that's kind of our job when we sign on the dotted line, is that we surrender our lives to a war if we're called upon. Having served 8 years, that's part of the deal. So you can argue killing innocent lives over lives that have volunteered to fight. Where is the line in that? Where is the weight in that? And you can debate one side or the other, and I think both have equal reason on each side for the decision to either stop the bomb or keep going and dropping the bomb. You know,
I think humans want to believe that we can parse our own motivations easily and understand why we're doing what we're doing, but often we're doing things for different reasons than we like to think we're doing them. I'm reminded of, I think it's in Jarhead, the Jake Gyllenhaal movie, where, they're training to be snipers and he doesn't want to kill anybody, but at a certain point he's practiced so much doing this that he kind of wants to fucking do it. He kind of, he's like, I kind of need to do this thing. Oppenheimer, I agree with you. It's status and pride and all those things are true. I think he wants to build that fucking bomb.
That's what I'm saying.
He's been working so hard to build
it. Yeah.
I want to do it,
Yeah.
And what he doesn't see, but he doesn't see that. He comes up with rational sounding, moralistic lessons for why this makes sense.
When the world learns the terrible secret of Los Alamos, our work here will ensure a peace mankind has never seen. A peace based on the kind of international cooperation that Roosevelt always envisaged.
I think Oppenheimer is 100% completely correct in saying this if the world was entirely populated by people like Robert Oppenheimer.
Right. Yes. Which it isn't.
Which it isn't.
Well, at least not the people in power. There might be way more Oppenheimers than we think in the populace of all nations, but the people in power are not full of a bunch of Robert Oppenheimers for sure.
To me, like everything, I know it's not statistically true, but everything I think of is on a bell curve. There are going to be a few super highly moral people on one end, and there are going to be a few super highly super duper evil people on the other end. And everything else is going to be somewhere in the middle, determined by circumstances. Because some people would never commit a crime, but then their family is starving, and now they will commit a crime. Like
100%.
That's what I think, and I cannot trust any of those individual people completely. Very true. Very true. And the vague nods and the scattered applause at this shows really where the scientists are feeling.
Yeah.
And now those jars are both full. We have enough plutonium and uranium for 2 bombs.
2 years and $1 billion worth? Hard to put a price on it. Not really, just add up the bills.
Which I think is 100% true.
I love that line.
And then there's also the jokes, because apparently there have been a lot of baby making going on at Los Alamos.
Rural free deliveries. 80 babies delivered the first year. This year we've had 10 a month.
Birth control is a little out of my jurisdiction, General.
And then a pregnant kitty walks by and he says, clearly. I will say that of all the great directors in the world, Nolan is among the least funny. Like, you don't think of a lot of big laughs in most of his movies, but there are a couple of good jokes in Oppenheimer.
Yes, for sure.
And now we watch them build the gadget. And to me, it's almost reverent and scary the way this is all handled as we see this thing assembled.
I need a date.
September.
July.
August.
July.
Test in July. But I need my brother.
And that's the exchange, isn't it? Like, okay, fine. We'll go on this timetable, but then I need my brother. And that's how he gets him onto the project. And then we see the things that his brother can do. And then we hear that he's moved away from politics and he's just working, I think, for Pressman or something.
Lawrence. He's working for Lawrence.
What do we call the test? Batter my heart. 3-person God.
What?
Trinity.
So Trinity is from a John Donne poem, Holy Sonnet 14. And the person who introduced him to John Donne, who he liked to read poetry with during their nights together, was Gene Tatlock.
And that's not showcased in the movie. So that's for the real Oppenheimer heads to, a little Easter egg for the Oppie heads.
Which I suppose you have to count me as one at this point because you too.
To a degree, sure.
And now the camera flies in on the Trinity site. Again, incredible cinematography, lots of research, everything that's in these labs. They went to the Los Alamos Center and found out exactly what was there, how it was connected, how it was laid out, and what every single switch and button and cable did. Wow. And this is to be accurate. That tower that they built, that is a full-size 102-foot tower that they essentially built using the same methods and materials that the original Trinity Tower was. What Christopher Nolan said about this, he said, everyone comes with thought and passion, not wanting to do something ordinary, but to make a very special film. Yeah. I think that's Christopher Nolan's superpower, is that he can get, I know I've said many times, one of my favorite quotes about movie making is Sidney Lumet, who said the job of the director is to get everybody making the same movie. Yeah. I think Nolan is the best at that. I think Nolan somehow manages to get these big movie stars and massive technicians to work under incredibly difficult conditions and bust their ass over and over again because they're all committed to making something great.
Well, because they've seen the results, right? So that makes you, when you see the results of your work be so well lauded and so well respected and so well financially received by an audience, you're even more excited to jump back on that set and give even more of yourself because you see that there is a great end result.
And I'm guessing, certainly in the military, that you were in some shitty situation with a really good officer or a really good sergeant and corporal, and it was shitty, but it was okay. And I bet you were also in an average or stupid situation with a terrible officer or sergeant or corporal, and it was a shit show.
I was rarely in a bad situation with a great officer because they always know. But I was in a lot of shitty situations with shitty officers or sergeants for fucking sure,
Yeah. So Nolan, who's a great captain of the ship and has great officers working under him, you'll be in the rain and it'll be wet and it'll be cold, but you'll be with people who know what the fuck they're doing, Yep. And now we're back at the gray board where the question is about his brother Frank and his communist leanings.
I knew my brother could be trusted. Absolutely.
And you felt your judgment was sound on who on the team could be trusted.
This is the whole thing,
Yep.
100%. And we're practicing some explosions.
I hope you learned something.
We learned we're going to need to be a lot farther away.
Well, figure it out fast.
So the kids at the actual Los Alamos, because there were a lot of kids there and there was a school, they knew the schedule of the explosions. And so they made sure, like on recess, to break out of the school because there was going to be an explosion down the street and they would hang out and watch that and then go back to class. And we hear that they're going to have to head off to Washington, and Groves and Robert are walking through a hotel, which I immediately recognized as the Biltmore in downtown Los Angeles. Like it's such, I know that hotel. So I knew that's where they were.
Yeah, because I saw that hotel. I'm like, that's not in DC. I know that hotel in DC.
And we run into the scientists we met in Chicago.
If we don't act now, they're going to use this thing against Japan.
Just because we're building it doesn't mean we get to decide how it's used.
Which is Robert already distancing himself from this decision.
Yeah.
It's out of my control.
He's being assimilated into the governmental point of view of the situation and the military point of view of the situation. As Teller tells him, you long ceased being what, a physicist or whatever. You long ceased being that. You're now a politician. Teller is right, because all these scenes since Teller said that, he's become more the politician than the physicist and the scientist.
Rami Malek is one of the scientists here, and I think there's like a meta experience for this because he's a recognizable face. Like his face so pops out to me. He's guy's a movie star, has been in a lot of big things that I think I notice him far more than I would have, considering it's a small part, than I would with a lesser known actor.
Which is the guy who's playing, I think Schindler was the name of the scientist, or Schindler, whatever his name is. Yeah, he doesn't stand out that much at all, but Rami Malek does, for sure. Because two times. One, the first time they meet him, Oppenheimer yanks the pen away from him as he's also writing on that clipboard. And the second time he runs into him, he knocks down the clipboard onto the ground. This makes a very loud noise. And his big eyes pop up as he's coming back up to show you like he's more like, what is happening here to this guy?
And they start talking about this petition, and Robert doesn't want to get into that at all. He says,
just tell me your concerns and I'll relay them.
My concerns? Germany is defeated. Japan's not going to hold out alone.
How could you know that?
And then Robert, again with his arrogant superiority, says,
that's not how weapons manufacture works, Cillian.
Opie, you have to help.
Fermi's in the meeting. Lawrence is in the meeting.
They're not you. You're the great salesman of science. You can convince anyone of anything. Even yourself.
I think they might have gotten more help from Oppenheimer if he had left off even yourself at the end of that line.
But throughout the whole movie, Steve, people are constantly telling him that he's the voice that can make the change. He's the voice that can do these kinds of things. So it's a lot that he is carrying on his shoulders all the time.
Well, and he's also throughout this movie telling the scientists, I will relay your concerns.
Yeah.
In one way or another, I will properly represent this point of view. He's cagey about whether or not he shares that point of view. Because what's interesting is the post-war Robert, when we're talking about the hydrogen bomb, 100% shares that point of view of like, we should be very cautious about building these things.
Right.
But the pre-Hiroshima and Nagasaki Robert isn't, you know?
Right. Yeah.
We're in with the Secretary of War where they're talking about the firebombing of Tokyo that killed probably 100,000 people, which is true. There's a lot of arguments that actually the firebombing of Tokyo was far more destructive than the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. I mean, it's pretty brutal what was done there.
Don't underestimate the psychological impact of an atomic explosion. A pillar of fire, 10,000 feet tall, deadly neutron effects for a mile. In all directions, from one single device. Dropped from a barely noticed B-29, the atomic bomb will be a terrible revelation of divine power.
I know no one else does, but divine power is weird for me because I'm like, no, this is. I mean, if you're saying that the atom, the nucleus of the atom, represents divine power because God created the atom, then I do see the connection. But putting the word divine there is like, no, this is humans. Humans doing this to humans. Nothing godly about this to me at all. But I get that, but that's my personal reaction to it.
If that's true, it would be definitive. World War II would be over. Our boys would come home.
It's a big deal.
Yeah.
And I don't, it's like if you watch those Clint Eastwood movies, like about Iwo Jima, as people really don't understand the brutality of the war at this point.
Yeah.
Absolutely brutal. And now we're talking about targets. And the thing is, they want to drop it on a military target, but they're not big enough.
Is there no way to demonstrate a bomb to Japan to provoke surrender?
And the problem with that is, if we say it's coming, they're going to shoot down the plane. And what if the bomb doesn't work? Then we've just made ourselves look terrible. And this part is also true, believe it or not.
We have a list of 12 cities to choose from. Sorry, 11. I've taken Kyoto off the list due to its cultural significance to the Japanese people. Also, my wife and I honeymooned there. It's a magnificent city.
That is the line of the scene for me.
Yeah.
Because it shows the cognitive dissonance and the ridiculous aloofness that people in power can sometimes have about the lives of other citizens in other countries. The fact that it's, well, and he's coming in from a ridiculously stupid place. Like, well, my wife and I honeymooned there or vacationed there, so we'll spare that city. But I'm going to cloud it and lie to you that it's because of the cultural significance of that city. Bull fucking shit. And so when you look at this is just how random death is. It's random. If he hadn't vacationed or honeymooned in Kyoto, maybe Kyoto would have been, maybe it would have been Kyoto and Hiroshima or Kyoto and Nagasaki, right? So this is the thing that you look at, this kind of stuff, is the callousness with which people in power use bombs to kill so many people. And it's just personal decision of whatever personal experience you had with a city like that. It just is stunning to see the aloofness of it. And by the way, this is James Remar, who is such a great actor. And of course, in 48 Hours, he's the villain in 48 Hours.
Oh, yeah.
And I think he's in Warriors as well. But like, he is in The Odyssey. So proof that Nolan works with the same actors. And when you see it, Steve, I wonder if you can pick him out when he shows up in The Odyssey. because he's hard to figure out that it's him. And I like looked later after the film and I was like, oh my God, that is him. So I think he's great here in showing the government's point of view on all of this, and at times the distance that they seem to be having from what they're about to cause and how many people they're about to kill.
So on a personal level, I'm glad they didn't destroy Kyoto. It is my mom was literally just there last month. It is supposed to be a remarkable, amazing city, but it's not the preserving Kyoto that rubs me the wrong way. It's therefore you randomly chose these 100,000 people to kill.
Yes,
it's just like there's such a callousness there,
and it's also this whole scene is also very JFK-ish. Because the military is kind of shouting down the sign. There's that one dude who's sitting in the corner with his legs crossed, who is dismissing all the concerns of the scientists. And then eventually Groves takes it, which we'll get to, I'm sure. But you're seeing all these different points of views being thrown out and all these considerations happening. But it's very clear where this is all leading to.
The use of the atomic bomb on Japanese cities will save lives.
If we retain moral advantage.
How so?
Well, if we use this weapon without informing our allies, they'll see it as a threat, and we'll be in an arms race.
Which is exactly true. That is what happened. He's certain. I said humans don't predict the future that well. He does predict the future well, but this is why this decision is too big. I cannot at the end of this. I kind of have the instinct on what I would decide, but the counterfactuals, as we said many times, can't be run. I don't know what would have happened. It's just too big. It is impossible to make a perfect decision on this decision.
I agree. It is the most difficult decision, and either choice you make is correct to you in the moment and could have led to the same result. Because how do you tell when it gets discovered it would totally fucking leak, that you had built a bomb or were close to building a bomb that could have ended the war quickly? How do you tell all these families of these soldiers, well, we could have saved your son's life or your son's life, but we decided to keep fighting instead of dropping the bomb on civilians? That would be a really hard sell to American families.
Well, and what if we say, okay, you know what? We're going to trash Los Alamos. We're going to stop pursuing atomic weapons because Nazi Germany is not a threat anymore. We're just not going to do this whole thing. But the spy at Los Alamos still brings the information to the Russians, and now they build the first bomb.
Right. Just like the space race, and we're behind and have to catch up. Yeah.
That's why just and this is anybody who says there is an easy solution to some of the really intractable problems we face today, they are lying to you, or they're wrong. There are none of these things have easy, simple solutions.
Or they're ignorant of all the tentacles of the problem like that, because there's so many complexities to that problem and so many things that are connected to it.
Now, we remember that the scientists had pushed Robert to sign this petition, and Robert had promised them that he will relay their feelings.
Secretary Stimson, if I may, not all scientists on the project are in agreement. In fact, this might be a moment to consider other opinions.
And then Groves interrupts him.
If you talk with
The Manhattan Project has been plagued from the start by certain scientists of doubtful discretion and uncertain loyalty. One of them just tried to meet with the president. Now, we need these men, but as soon as it's practical, we should sever any such scientist from the program. Wouldn't you agree, Doctor?
And he doesn't say anything else. Yeah. He never does relay those. As far as the movie is concerned, he never really relays the opinions of the scientists that are against this.
Just as we've started to like Groves, he pulls this move, and it is a harsh reality for those of us who are liking him. And he is a military man at heart.
Yeah.
And he's not going to, this is the goal. Don't quit the mission just as you're about to complete it.
Yeah.
And he shot Robert down. And Robert let himself be shut down.
Yeah, this is a way to end the war. I think Groves is completely consistent with his character in this moment.
But the Potsdam Peace Conference in July will be President Truman's last chance to have that conversation. Can you give us a working bomb by then?
Absolutely. We will test fire before the conference.
And now that dissonant music is building, and we're at a Jeep laying out the plan, of this is where ground zero will be, this is where we trigger from. And then they're talking about whether or not they'll do a bomber flyover.
They want to use the test to confirm a safe operating distance.
That's risky.
But not as risky as dropping one over Japan and hoping that we were right about the blast radius.
Don't let them slow us down. We're firing on the 15th.
The 15th? That's
the 15th.
15th.
So as we've now locked down the date to detonate the first atomic weapon, I think it's time to end part 3 of our exploration of Oppenheimer. Will this be the first Cine-Files 5-parter? I don't know. But I'm really enjoying the conversation. I hope everyone listening is too.
I can tell you, I think it is. Unless we do a 7-hour episode next, I think this is going to be 2 more parts for sure. But we hope you all are enjoying it. We hope you all like that we're taking our time through this film because it merits a more than our usual exploration of this kind of movie. So I hope you guys are enjoying it. We hope you guys are enjoying it. And so, yeah, I'm ready for part 4 when we get to it, Steve, for sure.
100%. And of course, we'd love to hear your thoughts. You can visit us on social media on Facebook, do a search for the Cine-Files, Cine_Files on Twitter, the Cine-Files podcast on Instagram. And of course, we'd love you to subscribe to the show if you haven't already and leave your comments or reviews. You can support the show at patreon.com/the Cine-Files, as well as Apple Podcasts. And you can reach me at SR Morris. John, how would folks find you?
You can always find me at The Rocha Says on all social media and my YouTube channel, youtube.com/John Rocha Says. We got so much going on there with the Geek Buddies, the Hot Mic, Spill the Tequila, my reactions, my reviews, the truth. So much happening there. Steve occasionally pops by on the channel as well. So please subscribe there. But also subscribe to our YouTube channel, the Cine-Files YouTube channel, where we endeavor to go live every month at least once to break down some topic or subject here. But of course, right now we're knee-deep in Oppenheimer, and maybe we'll swing around to a live show soon. But please subscribe to that channel as well.
So that's it for this week. We'll be back next time to continue our exploration of Oppenheimer right here on the Cine-Files.